All right, what is up? What is up? What is up? What is up, everyone? Welcome. Little late night chill stream on the Trout Show. I'm gonna maybe take a look at some games here. I guess I'll probably just do my review and get it out of the way now that the championship's over. I think it's been a long and I don't know if exhausting is the right word, but emotionally invested World Championship. I know there's some of you guys that are feeling sad that Fabi lost. I thought it was a very well fought match. I thought that I'm not sure how I would compare it to Karyakin, but I guess I would say that I feel that it was more exciting, that there were more interesting games. Not all of the games were super interesting, but I think the rapid games today demonstrated that. I'm just gonna get my mic a little closer here. I think the rapid games today demonstrated that even though the results might have been boring, the games themselves were not actually boring. If you really take a look at the moves, when you realize how small the errors were that cost Fabi so bad today, you realize why these guys are at the highest level and why those games were so close. Because the tiniest little error is all it takes. And I think it's demonstrative of the incredibly hard work and preparation that Fabi put into this match. He absolutely had chances along the way to win this, and I have no doubt at all that Fabiano Caruana is going to challenge again for the World Championship. You know, there's some guys in history like Peter Liko and Boris Gelfand and Alexei Shirov, although that match never took place, but there's been guys like that where they were Karl Schlechter, where they were just Zucker Tort, and they were one-hit wonders. You know, they came, they saw, they lost, you know, and you wonder what could have been, but in the end, they never made it back. But I don't think that will be the case with Fabio. I think he will be back, and I think he still has a legitimate chance at being a world champion. Okay, so I'm gonna just copy this for now. If you could send that to my DMs, that would be even better, Lucy. But I'm just gonna copy this right now, but I can't guarantee I'm not gonna have to copy something else. I won't be able to go back and get it in the chat. So we're gonna get on with some games here, guys. I've been doing this sort of little rundown of all the world champions through history, and so I thought we would take a look at the last few guys today. I'm not going to get super in-depth into them, but I did want to finish that off. As you can see, I've got my World Championship background going on there. Where are we here? There we go. There's my World Championship background. All the linear World Chess Champions through time, and also a couple of guys who were clearly the best in their day and age, like Philidor and Paul Morphy. We're going to finish this off with our last three, technically four guys if you count Carlsen. Just going to do a quick run through. We've dealt with Steinitz, Lasker, Capablanca, Alekhine, Uwe, Botvinnik, Smyslov, Tal, Petrosian, Spassky. We've talked about Fischer and Karpov. Next on our list at number 13 in the Linear World Chess Champions is Garry Kasparov, a.k.a. Garrick Kimovich Weinstein, aka Gaza Kasparian. His name was Russified. He took his mother's last name at one point in time, but he was born in the city of Baku in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan has, of course, turned into a powerhouse like most of the places where world champions have either come from or played important matches. The likes of Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, for example, at the top of his game right now, largely because of the influence of Garry Kasparov. Garry Kasparov is one of the greatest attacking players in history, and it's not a stretch to say that he's a candidate for the greatest chess player who's ever lived. Abjugair just subscribed to the tier 1. Thank you so much, dude. That's 7 months in a row, man. What? I'm gonna have to start getting like more badges. You guys are starting to get up close to the 9-month. I've run out of badges. I gotta make some new ones. You guys are going so ham on the subs. Thank you so much, Abjugair. Really appreciate your support, man. You've been there for me since the beginning, since before affiliation. Really appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. So Garry Kasparov was the world's youngest chess champion. He actually challenged for the world championship at the age of 21. But the conditions were extremely difficult. The first match, I think, lasted... let me see if I can find the total number here. The first match in 1984 against Karpov lasted 48 games, which is dramatically longer than the longest game previous to that, which had been Capablanca versus Alekhine. The game took place over like July till September or something like that. It took place over several months. The game was finally called because of health reasons, and they had to do a rematch. And when this rematch took place, Garry Kasparov, who had been down 5-3 in a first to 6 wins, ended up coming back and winning that match to become the youngest world champion in history, replacing Mikhail Tal, who I believe was 23 when he won. Garry Kasparov would go on to hold the world's highest rating in chess from 1986 until 2005 inclusive. Every single list that ever came out. In those days, it was quarterly. There might be more now. But just think about that. 20 years with the highest rating in the world. And this was before the age of the Super GM 2700s. There weren't a lot. There was only a couple in those days. Him and Karpov and then some scragglers. But he was clearly the best player in the world. He was incredibly powerful with the black pieces. And although some of his games were considered a little bit speculative in the age of computers, and you might remember his famous loss to Deep Blue, the computer, where he lost the final game in 19 moves, the shortest defeat of his career. He always had some ego problems, and he still does to this day. But it's completely legitimate to say that Garry Kasparov is the strongest, or candidate for the strongest chess player in the history of the world. Still to this day, I believe only one person has ever topped his rating, and that's current champion Magnus Carlsen. So that's Kasparov. That's a very short demonstration of the life of Kasparov. He's become heavily involved in politics, even during his time in chess. He was involved in politics. He was very upset with Campo Mayonnaise after the called match, and eventually that boiled over into him leaving the FIDE and forming the Professional Chess Association, or the PCA. He played a world championship match against Nigel Short, and he continued to be the highest ranking player in the world, while FIDE continued on with a knockout format and a tournament format, and they tried a bunch of different things in the interim over the course of a number of years. The Kasparov was broken away before a unification match could take place. And more recently, he's involved in anti-Putin politics and pro-Western democracy politics. I believe he still continues to live in the United States to this day. So that's Garry Kasparov. The 14th world champion who beat him in 2000 was Vladimir Kramnik, another Russian. Vladimir Kramnik is known for his extremely stodgy style, and although I don't think there's any openings that are named after him per se that I'm aware of, there might be some line somewheres, but he contributed very substantially to a lot of openings. And even to this day, when I'm teaching my students, many times I come across these Kramnik lines. He's got lines in the Petrovs that he popularized. He popularized the Catalan. He made the Berlin legitimate again, the Berlin and the Rue Lopez. He's got lines in the Queen's Gambit declined. He once played a Cochrane Gambit and got a draw against Topalov. So he's an extremely important opening theoretician. Although his play is a little bit stodgy, you wouldn't think of him necessarily as a tactical player. He's switched over to e4 openings more in his later years, and he continues to have a high rating, cracking over 2,800 even in the last year, and still a qualifier and candidate for the World Championship. So he won his match in 2000. This was a legitimate and linear FIDE World Chess Champion. I didn't count the people in between, although there were a number who won knockout events. Ruslan Ponomarayov, Rustam Kazimzanov, I believe Anand won one of those, and Alexander Kalifman, and then also Topalov won a match for the FIDE Championship at one point in time, and Karpov was also awarded and Kasparov's absentia was awarded the FIDE Championship. So, but none of those are considered linear. But Kramnik did defend his title more than once. He had a match against Peter Liko, which he had to win the last game with the white pieces to tie the match, thus retaining his world championship, because there was no tie breaks in that particular world championship match. So he did win that last game. Otherwise, Peter Liko would have been on this list, the Hungarian Prodigy, who was the world's youngest grandmaster at one point in time. At any rate, Kramnik then lost his title to Viswanathan Anand. That took place in 2007, and Anand was the champion from 2007 until 2013. He was India's first grandmaster and an absolute hero in India. He was the first Indian sportsman or woman to become ranked number one in their sport in the entire world. He has a photographic memory. One story I often tell people is how Canadian international master and 2,500 plus player Dean Hergott was at the World Juniors, and he happened to cross Viswanathan Anand, who was already quite a strong player. And Anand noticed that Hergott was holding in his hands a book called Chess Informant, which comes out about every 6 months and includes all of the most recent games with some very particular notation. It's extremely in-depth, and there's very little in the way of pictures or diagrams. It's just a bunch of raw lines. And Anand walked up to Hergott and said, "Hey, is that the latest Informant?" Hergott said yes. Anand said, "Would you mind if I borrowed it for just one night?" And Hergott was just starstruck and said, "Of course you could borrow it. You can borrow it as long as you want." So Anand comes back to him the next day and says, "Thank you so much. Here's your book back." And Dean Hergott said, "Well, that's okay. You can keep it longer if you'd like." And Anand said, "Well, what need would I have? I've already read all of the games." And Hergott said, "Well, you might want to check them again." And he's like, No, I mean, I remember all of the games." And Hergott said, "What do you mean? You remember every game in this entire book?" And Anand said, "Yeah, go ahead and open it up and pick a game, and I'll tell you what the move was." So Hergott kept testing him over and over again. He would be like, "Oh, well, the game between Califman and so. And Anand would say, "Well, which game? There's 3 of them in there." And he would quote a move, and Anand could tell you the 33rd move is black between so and so. He had an absolutely perfect photo memory. I don't know how much he's contributed to opening knowledge, but his extremely diverse play and unbelievably deep analysis and calculation is possibly unmatched in the entire history of the world of chess. And he is one of only 2, I believe, non-white world champions, the other one being Jose Raul Capablanca. So it's especially important, and he's the first and only to this day Asian world chess champion. So that is Viswanathan Anand, still very strong and active in chess to this day. And that leads us to our current world champion, who really needs no introduction. I haven't even gotten into his bio because his story is still being written. He was Grandmaster at age 13, trained under Simon Agdestein, who was a former Norwegian champion. Even in those days, he was noticed as being possibly the greatest chess talent the world has ever seen, highest ranking in the history of the world. He's now defended his world championship several times. And here in this picture, you can see him against the likes of Fabi and Karyakin. He's also defeated Anand twice. And there is your current world chess champion as of today, retained his world champion with the rapid match wins today. There he is, Mr. Magnus Carlsen of Norway. So thank you guys for bearing through all of that. Some of you might have found that really boring, but I did want to complete that, and I'll put those in my VODs. There may be people who are interested in the... I might even put a little clip together of all of my little stories of the world champions through time, because it's quite fascinating to see how we got to this point in time. And we've run through the entire list from Steinitz all the way to now. There's been drama. There's been espionage, possible murder. There's been psychology, accusations of cheating, several major wars, including world wars. But in the end, we have a sane and charismatic, to some degree, world champion. I know a lot of people are disappointed to not have an American champion, and I won't lie to you, it would have been really cool. It would have been the first time in my life that we ever had a North American world chess champion. I would have really loved to have seen that. So, Abjugair says my favorite chess player is Kasparov. For chess, Kasparov is one of my absolute favorites. I love that style of play. No offense to Capablanca, who I think is probably objectively the strongest player who ever lived. That's just my personal opinion. I believe that you could put Capablanca in any age and his chess would still be borderline perfection. But I don't enjoy his style as much. I like Tal, I like Fischer, and I like Kasparov. I'm not so big on Kasparov, the human being, but I do like, not that I know him personally, but we've had our altercations, but I'm a huge fan of the chess of Garry Kasparov, and I'm constantly, still to this day, learning from his chess. Yeah, he was a cute kid. He started training with Botvinnik when he was 10 years old. Interesting story, Kasparov learned chess from his mother. His mother was a chess player in the family. I believe. I should double check that. I should actually double check that, but I believe that's true. Anand also was trained by his mother. Vladimir Berlin Kramnik, that's correct. Yes, and he's contributed a lot of lines. He's also responsible for the Petrov's line with knight to c6, and then after c4 he plays knight to b4, forcing bishop to e2. He popularized that line and made that very stodgy. He set the Petrovs back for white by like 10 years. After those lines, people started playing like e4, e5, bishop to c4 because of what Kramnik had done. And now, of course, we've got Fabi. There's a joke with my chess friends that Kramnik always thinks he's winning. That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. If you watch the interview, no matter what the result, he always likes his position. That's absolutely true, Max. Camel Clutcher flashing the Magnus emotes. Where'd you find those? Cole Player says, my boy Magnus. Hey, how you doing, Cole Player? Yeah, Magnus won it, man. I mean, I feel that Magnus, although I gotta say that I thought that Fabi probably outplayed him in this match. He certainly outprepared him. He definitely had his chances. This could have been Fabi's tournament, guys. It could have been his match. But I still feel that Magnus is the best player in the world. I think it's closer than it's been in the past. And I think Fabi will come back not only well prepared, but I think this experience will give him a little bit of, like, I'll give you an example. Here's something veteran that Magnus did in this match. He played c4 with white. The next game he plays d4. Then he plays e4. What does he play in the fourth game? c4. Then what? d4. Then e4. Why did he wait so long between these opening moves? He wanted enough time for his team to carefully analyze, not only with a computer, but to get their physical hands on the board, to look up the lines, to make sure that they fully understood what they were doing, and let a little bit of time pass. Don't let Fabi have all that information fresh in his head. That was a veteran, savvy move of a current sitting world chess champion. He was prepared. So, although I don't feel that his opening preparation was nearly as good quality as Team Fabi, I thought Team Fabi totally outworked them in the openings. Outworked Magnus's team. But that was a savvy and veteran move that Magnus chose. And I think that Fabi is going to come back the next time, and he is going to be not only well prepared, but that little bit of extra veteran quality of having played this match and knowing now that he can compete with Magnus. I think it's going to help him out. I think if this match takes place again, Fabi's going to win it. That's what I think. Max says, I watched a documentary about Anand where he talked about his earlier personal life, and he told a story about how he was sitting on the bus talking to some old guy, and eventually he was asked what his job was. He said he was a professional chess player, and the guy, not knowing who he was, said that he didn't think there was much potential in that profession for him, unless his name was Viswanathan Anand. That's pretty funny. That's a cute story. I like that. Yeah, everybody knows Anand in India. And now India is one of the powerhouse chess countries in the world. They've got dozens of grandmasters. So that you can contribute virtually all of that. Lucy Moody says, Fischer said Capablanca had a soft touch. Yeah, that's well said. His endgames are just like every endgame Capablanca ever played is a study. It's pure brilliance. It's hard to believe that a human mind could come up with such things as what Capablanca did. I just don't really like his style the same way. I'll always be a Tal, Fischer, Kasparov kind of guy. Wow, look at these Amen emotes. Camel Clutcher's coming in with some hot emotes here. The Ogre of Baku. I kind of want to see Dingler have a go at the title. I would love to see that. And that is very realistic. I definitely think there's a few Chinese GMs that I think have a chance. I have still not completely given up on Zhang Zibu, who I really thought was going to be the first Chinese world champion. Back in the old days, I remember there was Yi Rongguang. I don't know if you guys remember him. There used to be like one Chinese grandmaster and then a bunch of like nobodies. But there was like there was Yi Rongguang, and then the modern era came along, and Bu Zhangzi, and chess exploded in China. Now there's guys you've never even heard of in their 2700s. It's ridiculous. But Liren Ding is a big name. I'll give you an example of other people he's had streaks like. Remember hearing the story about Tal having a streak of something like 100 games consecutive without a loss. Vladimir Kramnik once went 80 consecutive games without a single loss. Capablanca once went 8 years without a single loss. Didn't play as many games, but only because there wasn't as much competitive chess in those days. So Liren Ding is in the company with world champions to play like that at the highest level. The question for Liren Ding is, can he get enough wins against a guy like Magnus? Can he actually beat Magnus? That's the ultimate question. Every person has to answer that question now. And there's some people I think can do it, and there's some people I'm not sure if they can right now. The people I think could do it today would be Levon Aronian, Shakhriyar Mamedyarov, Kramnik if he was in really good form. That's probably about it for me. Nakamura, I don't believe that Nakamura has the human qualities to be a world champion. I don't think that he's patient enough. I think that he gets very down and depressed when he's losing. He doesn't want to play anymore. He loses his motivation. He's only having fun when he's winning. And I don't think that he has the human qualities. You can guarantee he's got the chess for it. He could wipe the floor with Magnus in any given game. But I don't know if we will ever see that match. It would sure be exciting, but I don't buy that it's going to happen. Anand, although Anand is quite old, Anand still has that capability. And here's an interesting fact about Anand. Anand has won the world championship in match form. He's won the world championship in tournament form. He has won the knockout world championship, and he has won the world rapid championship. So every major time control, Anand has won that world champion. There's nobody else who has ever done that. So I still feel like Anand at an advanced age, getting close to 50, could possibly beat Magnus. Sorry, I'm pretty far behind on the chat, but I'm going to catch up with you guys. I just want to catch your comments before we get on with these games. Ding's rapid rating is even lower than Fabi's. Yeah, okay. I mean, I hope to see. I love to see chess players from other parts of the world. I've told you guys this before. I am dying for an African super grandmaster to come out. I want chess to be truly international, and I would just love to see a player come out of Africa, maybe Egypt, Morocco, Nigeria. There's some strong countries out there. You know what I mean? And they just need to develop, and have more access to tournaments and stuff like that. I'm just praying for that day, for an legitimate African world championship contender. Same thing with women. I want to see another Judith Polgar. Maybe Hu Yifan will turn into this. Maybe she'll turn into a 2800. I would love to see that, a legitimate world champion contender who's a female. I would love to see that. I would have loved it if Judith Polgar would have been the world champion. So we'll see if those things play out. But just to say that another Asian world champion would be really, really nice. And I really enjoy Liren Ding's chess very much, although he gets a lot of draws. I really enjoy his style. And I hope for the best for him that he can do that. So many matchups that would be interesting these days. MVL is a really good one. GM Chessmaster is making a splash on the trout show. How you doing, GM Chessmaster? Welcome. Thank you for joining me. MVL is another one I didn't think of. MVL has really especially excellent openings, so I would be very interested to see an MVL match. Garry, I'm sorry, I just can't get on board with Garry. I can't believe for a second that Anish Garry can beat Magnus Carlsen in a match. I'm sorry, I just don't buy that. I mean, he could rattle off a bunch of draws, but could he beat Magnus Carlsen? I don't know. An interesting article you read about the Chinese school of chess moving on from the Russian school. Yeah, several players that I've either taught or worked with when they were kids went to train with grandmasters in China. For example, Karoli Zali and women's international master Yuan Ling Yuan. And they came back and they were just monsters. So I don't know what they were taught. I believe also Eric Hansen was trained over in China at one point in time. I'm still just a bit annoyed that Magnus offered a draw in round 12 and everyone suddenly believed that Magnus has lost his signature style of squeezing his opponent. I guess everyone forgot about his 7-hour match against Karyakin last month at the Sinkfield Cup in a drawn position. He also had a 7-hour match against Fabi in the first game of this match. So yeah, I mean, I don't feel like he felt there was any need to do that. And I don't think his advantage was as large as what people were saying in that game, Cold Player. So yeah, I agree with you that, I mean, for what reason he did it, I don't know, but I think he just knew that his advantage was going to be big and rapid. And on my last broadcast, we talked about how Fabi had been known to make grotesque blunders right out of the opening. We looked at an 11, and you were here. We looked at an 11 game loss that he had against Carlsen. And what happens in the second game? A grotesque blunder. Now, of course, any one of us would have fallen for that. None of us would have seen that. I think Fabi would have had he had more time. But that's the kind of thing that can happen in a rapid. And Magnus can do that to you in those fast time controls. And that's exactly what he did. He came out and he stomped Fabi today. Or technically yesterday. Aronian I want to see, but he chokes in high-pressure situations. I mean, they used to say that, Max, about Carlsen. Remember, Carlsen had the highest rating in the world for years before he was the world champion. He choked more than once. I think maybe it was like 3 times or something like that he fell apart and he didn't make it to the world championship. Exceptionally dubious. Thank you for coming in and joining my show. Welcome. I was kind of caught up on the chat, guys. I'm sorry I'm so far behind. And another thing is you also have to get the just because you qualify for a world championship, somebody still has to make a bid that's worthwhile. So there still has to be some money involved. Like a famous example was Alexei Shirov once qualified for the world championship. He beat Kramnik, who was off form. Again, another guy that they said was a choker. And he had several setbacks like that. Eventually, Shirov never ended up getting that world championship match against Kasparov because nobody wanted to pay for it because he had a terrible record against Kasparov. And they thought that he had no chance, I guess, and so nobody would pay for it. Eventually, Kramnik ended up getting a match for the world championship with Kasparov in 2000, which he won to become the linear world champion. So Shirov never got his shot. So that was the first time since 1935, which was Max Uwe, that a non-qualifying player had played a world championship match. So even if like a guy like Aronian or Geary or Ding or someone wins, they still have to get some money together. So I feel we could probably still do that, but I don't know. I think that the Fabi match was really exciting because it was American. I think it's really brought chess to the forefront again, and I think you're going to see a new wave of American talent because of this. I think Fabi's done something really special for American chess, and I thought he represented them very, very well. Ginger Master says, I would easily destroy Magnus. Ginger Master, coming in with some confidence. Nakamura has mental problems, especially versus Magnus. I don't know if he has mental problems, but he has some blocks anyways. He's definitely scared of Magnus. Mamedyarov, yeah. Mamedyarov Carlsen would be a freaking exciting match, man. Eric Hansen once said that the guy who he thought was the strongest player he had ever played was Mamedyarov because you could feel his intensity and the deepness of his calculation as he was staring into the board. Magnus had like a 16 nothing until recently. Well, like a record of wins, you mean? I don't like that a classical tournament has to be decided playing Rapid or Blitz. I feel bad for Fabiano. He did all the preparation for nothing. I completely agree with you, Abjigair. I don't like to see it end like that either. I understand that they can't play forever, but could they, I mean, how many draws could you possibly get? I mean, maybe you could say that after a certain number of games, if the match has to be called, that the match it's kept by the, incumbent champion. Maybe you could do that. But shouldn't you at least win one game at regular time control? I agree with you, Abjigair. I think it's unfair to Fabi that he should lose on this, and so I'm staunchly against like if they ever go to a format where there's like blitz and like rapid games, to judge the championships, like how they do in the chess.com blitz. That's fine because it's a blitz playoff, so I don't mind that at all. Actually, I really enjoy that, but I wouldn't want to see that for like a legitimate world champion where like you take a series of classical games, a series of rapid, and a series of blitz and a series of bullet, and then add them all up and that's your score. I wouldn't want to see that in the world championship. I don't think that's legit. Yeah, I love Shaq's style too. I think it's fantastic, and he was very close. It was him and Fabi neck and neck in that tournament. He very well could have been here. But Fabi was a little more solid. Anand is still a top contender, but I don't think I'd see him beating Magnus. Yeah, he hasn't had much luck in the past. If you had to bet, you'd say Shaq or Ding for the next one, or possibly somebody younger. Yeah, there's always new guys coming in. I really like Vidit from India. I think Vidit is a big deal. Soltego's coming in with 12 people. What is up, Soltego? How you doing, my man? Welcome everyone from the Soltego show. It's pretty cool to have Soltego back. Caravan Ride, thanks for making a splash on the Trout Show. Thank you for that follow. I wish I could do like a Christopher Walken voice. You know, I mean, I can barely do a Fat Tony voice, but I can't do the Christopher Walken. Otherwise, I'd like give you the cowbell, speech. You know what the show needs? The show needs more cowbell. Don't make me tell you again about the cowbell. Okay, it's not very good. It's not like Soltego. It's not like Soltego, so. Lucy says this year's WCC could have benefited from 6 more games. Guys, we're just talking a little bit about the World Championship games from today. We haven't gotten into the actual physical games yet. We're just talking about a little bit about how the championship went down. It's really cool to get all the insights from everybody. A lot of people have some comments. I would have liked to have seen 6 more games as well. And it looks like somebody's coming out there and needs to be blocked. So if you guys want to give that guy a block, that would be cool. Do we have a mod in the house? Yeah, we got some mods in the house. Oh, is it a fake spammer? It's not even the real guy? Like it's a guy spamming the spammer? Is that what's going on? Cold Player says Sam Shanklin 2020. I laugh at that, but I shouldn't laugh. Sam Shanklin has really turned a corner. He's boring. God, is he boring. But man, he's really turned into a super GM. What a run he had this year. Does he do great interviews? I didn't know that. Highest African GM is from Egypt. Basim Amin, 2709. Wow, I didn't know there was a 2700 in Africa. That's amazing. Hitchem, what was that guy's name from Morocco back in the 80s? Hitchem El... I can't remember his name, damn it. Hitchem El... I can't remember his name. Anyways, there was a famous player from Morocco for years who was one of the top players. Egypt has a lot of strong players. There's a great book you can read on this Ugandan refugee. She was a female player, and she turned out to be a big chess prodigy and represented her country and stuff. I think in the grand scheme of things, she's not really that terribly strong. But to think of this refugee, going through war and suffering through a situation like that and becoming this brilliant chess prodigy and representing her country, it's one of the most beautiful stories you could ever read. I'll see if I can find that girl's name for you guys, but there's a book written on her. Wonderful story. So it demonstrates to me that the talent is out there. They just need an opportunity. I've even thought about putting up my course as offering my course to the Red Cross or to the UN or something like that, so that they could offer it as something free that they could give to children in refugee camps and stuff around the world. Something to occupy their mind. It's a beautiful game. It's cheap and easy to afford a chess set. So I would really like to see that. I would really like to see someone crawl out of those kind of conditions and become a world championship contender. I just think I can't wait for an African world champion. I can't wait. I don't buy Garry beating anybody, says Max. Garry is Petrosian on steroids. Yeah, something like that. Carlsen was much younger than Aronian. Garry probably would have drawn the 4 rapid games. Oh, looks like we got some more trolls out there having a good time. If you guys can get rid of those guys, that would be awesome. Exceptionally dubious is gone. Soltego, I don't think you are, but let me put you in as a mod. I'll put you in right now, Soltego. There we go. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. I don't usually like impose on people to be mods. Like it's kind of like an honorary thing. Some people like it, some people don't. Give me 1 second here. I just want to put this on a loop. Okay. Who's 15-5 versus you? Garry? Oh, exceptionally dubious. Oh, okay. That's probably where you got that name from. Is Vinsilden in the building? What's up, Vinsilden? Oh, and you got the emote. I thought that was a crab. Apparently it's a building and it says Vinsilden is in the building. I thought it was a crab. I thought that was a crab, but it's the Vinsilden emote. And I kind of like it. I kind of like it a lot. Hey, Caravan, right? I'm free from the 2-minute follower bar. Do I have it on 2-minute followers? I think I took the 10-minute followers off so that you guys could talk. What's up, Railbird? Was there a movie made about that girl? Is that what you're talking about, Railbird? I didn't know that. I have not seen the movie. If there's a movie, I would really like to see that. Yeah, Queen of Katwe. That's the name. That's exactly who I mean, Max. Yes. Uganda. I've got the country correct at least. The book is really beautiful, and I first heard about her through a non-chess playing friend. But it's a really interesting story. Do I want to donate my classes to you? There's mods around, but I guess they're sleeping or whatever. Made all those accounts and I'm spamming with them so that I can try to get mod to ban them. Don't say things like that, Caravan, because you will get banned if you say things like that. Even if you're joking around, don't say that. I see you've had an account since 2012, so I think that you're just joking. But I have people that come in and they'll say, hey, how's it going? I'm here to troll you. And then they actually do it. It's like, boy, you're not very smart to tip me off you were planning to do that. Because now I got your little bubble open. No problem, Caravan. I see now that you got a legitimate account. Usually when somebody says that, I open them up, and if their account's like 1 day old, then pretty good sense that they're actually going to spam me. What about this for the next WCC? They're to play 12 classical games, and let's see. If there's not a winner, the WCC title stays vacant. I don't really like that. I don't like having a vacant title. I think just that. I think it's classical and consistent with history that the champion should retain their title. Camel Clutcher coming in with the troll emote. Camel, where are you getting all these awesome emotes, man? I'm totally jealous. Caravan Riot. I've had this plan going for 6 years. He's been biding his time, waiting for just the right sucker, and here he is on the Trout Show. I know something like that ended in a mess in the Kasparov match, but if there was just a sudden death classical, I feel that could work. Well, a sudden death classical. I mean, I think you should have to win one game. If you can't win one game at legitimate time controls, then maybe they just have to rematch. Maybe the champ stays the champ, but they have to rematch again in 6 months or something. I don't know. What's happening in the chess world? Come now, Ginger. You know what's going on in the chess world. You've been watching the last month. Make it the first to 10 wins. Yeah, that's what Bobby Fischer tried, Vince Silden. No, that's not a good plan. And if you doubt me, go see if you can Google some pictures of Kasparov and Karpov from their match in 1984, and you will see how gaunt they look. They're disheveled and gaunt, like they haven't seen the sun in 6 months, which is probably about correct. BTTV for these troll emotes. Oh, okay, that's where he's getting it from. Yeah. Rufus keeps telling me about that. But I haven't picked that up yet. Okay, guys, let's take a quick look at some of these games. Here are your rapid games from today. First one is Magnus Carlsen as white versus Fabiano Caruana. So we get c4. Once again, you see how he's stuttering? This is a veteran move that Magnus did. He stutters his opening so that his team has enough time to take a close look at them, and just enough time to let Fabi, sit on that opening for a week, right? Let the moves roll back into his subconscious. He doesn't want Fabi to have those lines fresh in his head because he just looked at them the day before. Make him cool off a little bit. Sit on these openings. The guy's got hundreds of thousands of opening moves crammed into his head for this match. So he makes him sit on it a little bit. This time we see an early g3. I think that's a deviation from some of the other games. Bishop to b5 and e5. So this is basically, guys, this is kind of a type of a King's Indian attack. That's what we've got going on. A King's Indian attack in the World Championship. Castles, knight to e2, c6, bishop to g2, a6, a little bit strange. I'm not sure if I like this pawn formation. I'm not quite sure exactly where he was going with this. I haven't looked at these lines. If you guys have any insights, please let me know. Okay, so castles, b5, d4, and d6. This is a Fabby kind of a move. Usually Fabby doesn't have these advanced pawns like this. I think this is demonstrative of his... This is kind of why he's got some issues in these like faster games. Because think about the match. How many times did you ever see him with a pair of pawns even on the 4th row this early? Right? He's playing a little bit aggressive with his pawns as black. So d6, then he plays this passive move d6. It's a little bit bizarre. So a3, bishop takes, knight takes, pawn takes on c4. There's never any way that you can legitimately hold this pawn. So pawn takes, and knight to a5 is a really cute move. So now the exchange is going to be a bit of a problem, because now we're going to get moves like knight to b6 and bishop to e3. And also the rook's not going to be able to come over to d8. So basically, it's not going to be... Basically, white's going to retain this control over the d file if he wants to. He's also threatening to take and play the same kind of a line. Black's pawns are all messed up here. Again, think about this. When did you ever see 12 moves into the game Fabby with a pawn on the 5th rank? This bishop stays on the long diagonal. I know it's blocked by his e-pawn temporarily, but f4 is going to come someday. If nothing gets done, then it's possible that either bishop to e3 or queen to e2 are going to get played. Let's take a look at what the computer says for the evaluation. And the evaluation is already that black has a good position here. Or, sorry, white has a good position here. It's already thinking about queen exchanges. But I don't feel that queen exchange is necessary. I wouldn't do that as white. This is game 13. So this is the first game of 3 rapid tie breaks that were played today. If you guys are just coming in late, spoiler alert, Magnus won the World Chess Championship. He won 3-0. Yes, this is from the rapid section, game 13. So bishop to e3, he does take. So the reason he's taking is because he wants this b6 square. And then he can also attack this c4 pawn if he needs to. So he's going to play the bishop to e3 first. Bishop to e3, there's knight to g4, but it doesn't matter because he's got moves like c5. He could even possibly play the bishop further if he wanted to. So black's not even going to try that. He's just going to try to control the b6 and c5 squares. And then we have f3. So now he's preparing to regroup his pieces, possibly here and here. I mean, black is a pawn up, but you can see that white's position is much more solid. This b pawn is a small problem. You know, white does have to keep an eye out on the b pawn, but he's probably got nightmares about the last time that he played a rapid against Carlsen and ended up with his rook over on b4, and white played this incredible rook b1 followed by b3 and knight to a2 move, trapping the rook. It was incredible. So I don't think he's going to be in any big hurry to try to get in on that. He does go for the rook to b8, but I assume it's probably to put some pressure on that line, which he does do. Rook to b3, rook to e1, and knight to e8. I mean, probably black is fine here, but I think he just doesn't really have a good plan. There's no real way to penetrate these pawns on the king side. I mean, unless he wants to push Harry and go for some nutbag attack, but what's he going to do? Who cares? That doesn't do anything. I feel like black's the one who's going to have issues over here. Is Camel gone? Sorry, Camel. You're probably gone by now, but have a good night. Thank you for dropping by, man. Appreciate that. A fish master. I am indeed a fish master, Soltego. I'm a guppy master. I'm a guppy master. I'm a GM. Yeah, you got to see Bertrout's show with the tactics from the WCC. What's up, Vertwitch? How you doing? that sword looks good beside you there, Soltego. Who was a perpetual stalemate? What was his? Oh yeah, because I got modded on somebody's show, and he's like, "Congratulations on your promotion to Swordfish." That was a pretty good joke. Ginger Master says he would have crushed Magnus just looking at this setup. Really? Ginger Master's got a lot of coming in with some confidence. So I'm kind of thinking it would be nice to pin that rook. So he is going to carry out his plan. He's gotten away with what he wanted. I'm a little bit surprised that rook e1 ended up getting played, but he had to do that temporarily because of the move rook to b6, I guess. So now he's regrouped his bishop. The pawns are nice and solid. The king can come to f2 if it needs to. This is temporarily guarded by the knight. The knight can't really be accosted. Can't even get to b6 or c6 because of the bishop. I mean, white is just clearly better here, in my opinion. I'm taking care of baby Aurora, and I'm happy to see that you shaved. As a viewer, I like that it shows me that you care. Well, you know, I really didn't do it for you, Vertwitch, but hey, man, I'm glad that you appreciate it. Glad you enjoy that. I moved into a new place, so I dropped like $4,000 in the last 2 months. And I don't have $4,000. I don't have to tell you. I'm just a chess teacher. So like, you know, shelling out $50 or whatever on razors is not really high on my priority list. So I have to be a little bit thrifty on that stuff like that. No riot. Okay, so let's see how this game plays out. I mean, I thought this game towards the end was drawish. So I haven't really taken a close look at any of these games. Usually I would do a proper analysis before I came onto the show, but today we're just kind of taking a look at it together. So if you guys have any comments and improvements, I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. Is Simon Williams here? If so, unban me, please. Very Twitch, did you get banned again? You gotta behave yourselves on these streams, man. Don't get banned. Don't get banned on the Simon Williams show. I've told this story before, but I'm actually banned by Garry Kasparov on Twitter. Garry Kasparov himself had an altercation with me on Twitter and banned me, so over some politics. So it happens. Very Twitch. Watching you from work, loving the stream. Cool, man. Thanks for hanging around, Cold Player. Appreciate that. Cold Player. Going to be sporting the new, here it is, by the way. This is the very mug you're going to be getting. There it is. This is the 15-ounce version with the rounded bottom, thick and heavy, big handle. This is a really good mug. Really, really good mug. You guys can check that out in my merch store. I still got to get one to Vertwitch, but also there's this one here. This one is the 11-ounce, but this is the Harlem Night. Look at that, baby. Are you seeing this? That is badass. You've probably never seen it up so close. How hardcore that knight is. He's got his marine hat on, right? He's a jarhead. It's the jarhead knight. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful graphics. So Cold Player is going to be part of the Trout merch team. It's on its way, man. Oh, he banned you like 3 years ago. Maybe you could try to like contact him in DM or something, Vertwitch. He might have just banned you from the show. Maybe you could apologize and tell him you'll behave yourself and see if he'll be a little bit nice about that. You never know. Sometimes folks get fidgety, and it's his show. Ultimately, he gets to make those choices. But usually, people are pretty reasonable. If you are, that's tragic, right, Max? I know. He got in my face about some like politics and stuff like that, and so like I posted a picture of like that time that like some like KGB agent or someone showed up at his press conference and started hitting him over the head with a chessboard, with like a wooden chessboard. You know what I mean? So like so he made Karpov thought he'd score some points off of me and made some comments and then I posted that picture, so he banned me. But that's okay. That's okay. I'm back now, so I got a new Twitter account, so I can go check him out again. Had a dream I got to play Garry Kasparov. Really? And how did you do, Soltego? Did you crush him like a bug? Did you play the Berlin? Did you play the Berlin and mash him? And then he like made a documentary about how he must have had secret grandmaster help behind the scenes, like what he did with the computer. I totally enjoyed this year's tourney. Yeet. Burchout pitching for the chess shopping channel. Hey, Mr. Dodgy Chess, how you doing? How did you like the World Championship? Taking a look at the game right now. We're going to get back to it in a second. Just trying to get caught up on the chat. I'm always far behind. I really admire like the Soltegos of the world and the Kingly Bingleys and you guys that can keep up on the chat. I'm so far behind. I can beat Garry Kasparov in his sleep. Yeah, if he was sleeping and you weren't, probably you could. Correct. You'd probably lose on time. That's right. Say what you want to me. At least I didn't get beat in the head with a chessboard. Exactly. See? Caravan Ride gets it. It was a fun match. Prefer longer, though. Yeah, I would like it a little bit longer, too. You know, if the players are a game, then that would be fun in the future. At least have one win. That's what me and Abjigair were talking about. It's kind of sad that it has to end on a rapid. I could beat Garry Kasparov with a chessboard, says Caravan Ride. That's about the only way I could beat him, too. Even today, Garry Kasparov is like probably a 2,700 at least player. He was very rude to Magnus on Twitter, saying that Magnus was trash. Was he? Really? Oh, I didn't see that. He's just he's got an ego. He's always had an ego, Kasparov, but he's heavily involved in politics, and he always has been. He's always been, you know, like do it my way or I don't like you kind of a thing and stuff. But he's just passionate. I mean, he's like William Shatner is like that on Twitter as well. Don't piss off William Shatner because he'll click that ban button on you real quick. You know, I'm not banned, but I know a lot of people that got banned from William Shatner. Just some people are passionate like that. It's fine. It's their space. Magnus's reply was hilarious. He said, Garry and Vlad are entitled to their stupid opinions. Oh my God, that's hilarious. That is absolutely hilarious. I can beat Kasparov. Yeah, but his view of politics is awful. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too heavy into it, but I'm not a fan of his politics. But okay, so let's continue on with this game, guys. Let's finish this thing off. This is game 13. So this was the first of 3 rapid tie breaks which was played today. It was a 4-game rapid match, 25 minutes and 10-second increment from the start of the game is what I believe it was. And here you can see that Fabi's doing something that we've seen before. You remember how he did that knight to d1? I believe that was in game 1. Do you remember that, guys? Where he played knight to d1, and then he played the knight to like f2, and then he played to g4, and then he played to h2, and then he played back to f1. Remember that crazy setup that he did to stave off that really powerful attack by Magnus in game 1? Okay, so we're seeing the same kind of a thing again. Here he's also again dreamed up this long-ranging knight move, where he wants to try to get an outpost on b5 and close down this queen side, because he knows that the king side is covered. He knows the king side is covered. So we've got knight to c5. Can't take with the knight because the rook is hanging. And once again, black with a bad rook on b6, but at least this time he can take the pawn. So he does do that. Then we've got knight takes bishop and pawn takes. Look at these awful pawns. Really, really awful pawns. But he's got 2 extras. So let's see how Magnus ends up taking it out. So he does take on c4. Direct attack on the e-pawn. And then comes knight to d4. Let me see if I can understand why he plays knight to d4. Maybe is it because he's afraid of probably bishop to b6? So let's say if king here or something, then bishop to b6. Is that what we're talking about, guys? If that's the case, then why didn't he play this right now? Why didn't he play bishop to b6 right now? Is it just because he was going to take it? And now the powerful c-pawn is protected. That could be the reason why. Maybe this position is still good for black. And the computer seems to think that black is at least equal, if not a little bit better. So that might have been the reason why he decided to take on c4 first. You think, let me see here. I'm not sure what he wants with knight to b5, honestly. Yeah, I mean, it's the same kind of a concept as in that first game, but I don't think it does the same job. Because I don't really feel like that's exactly where white's attacking. White's attacking on the d file and trying to take advantage of these weakened c and d pawns, right? He's getting got his pawn shredded, right? I heard his voice trembling on the phone, so pretty sure it's Fear. Who's that? Oh, you tried to get Magnus to play you, but he declined? I gotcha. Wow, Ginger Master. Ginger Master is smack talking the world champ. Abjugir says in this line, maybe after bishop here, he's, let me see, whoops, bishop to here, maybe knight to c3, he's thinking? Why knight to c3, I wonder? Can I just play here? Are you going to go back? Oh, just take the bishop, yeah. So knight to c3. Bishop takes, knight takes, rook takes. Maybe knight to c5. Yeah, I mean, that's still not really enough for me there. Maybe now just bishop takes. Just get that thing out of the way. No, this is still a crush. But no, I do think that maybe after the bishop, I think just knight takes looks good. I feel like this is a really bad position. Now it seems like all of a sudden everything seems well protected. All of these lines are protected for black. And this c pawn becomes very dangerous. The a pawn is also under attack. And you got a knight and two pawns, one of which is quite dangerous in exchange for a rook. So, and there's only one minor piece left on the board. So I think this is probably good enough. But okay, so pawn takes knight, bishop takes pawn, knight to d4. It's interesting to see how Fabi handles these situations. He's so good defensively. Just a full piece for nothing. I think knight takes b6 is better, yeah. Bishop g5 feels more accurate either way. I see what you mean. Bishop g5. Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Great point, Max. You could accomplish the same kind of a thing with bishop g5. Well said. Right, why invite the risk? Good point, good point. So then if that's the case, could he have done that there? Bishop to here? What's going on here? Why can't he play this line? Yeah, I feel like white's got a great position here. Great position, but he does have to still waste some tempos to scoop up some of those pawns at some point in time. That bishop pair was super strong for white, agreed. Two bishops, black's pawns are smashed, and white has centralized rooks. You still think knight to d4? Just to take this? Is that going to be enough, though? Knight takes... oh, I see, because there's a mate threat. That's the reason why. Right. There's a mate threat. Okay, I get you. Thanks. I'm glad that you're here, Max, because I haven't had a chance to take a look at this game, so I'm missing some of these concepts. But that is a good move, and that's probably the reason why even now he played that move. So the threat is not to take the rook. The threat is if the king moves over, then there's a mate. So if instead in this position, after bishop to here and the knight move, probably now I've got to take this. But then after knight takes, he's attacking my bishop, plus he has a draw chance. So maybe I have to, I don't know. Might have to chop this. Pawn takes and bishop takes. Is this possible? But now he's got a couple of dangerous pawns. This might not be a win for white. In fact, it says that black is winning. The reason is because these pawns are extremely dangerous. And now after the move knight to e5, he continues to renew his threat on f3. And now there's these extremely dangerous passed pawns. No. This is not good enough for white. See, I would fall for something like that. Bishop takes c4 was a correct move. Very nice. So the knight, bishop takes, pawn takes. Bishop takes on e6. Again, I'm thinking it's the same kind of stuff. If rook to here, then he doesn't even have to do that yet. You could probably just play like king to here now or something. And if rook to here, maybe now you can do knight here. So bishop takes, pawn takes, bishop takes e6, king over to f8, rook takes pawn, and now he's gotten his king over, king to e7. Fabi had to calculate all these under rapid time controls. Rook takes, very nice little move, forcing the exchange. Bishop takes, king takes. And now we find ourselves in a pawn up endgame. This one I think is winnable. The reason the difference between this and some of the ones we've seen in the past, number one, there's pawns on both sides of the board. Number two, there's several weaknesses. Backwards or potentially backwards pawns for black. And also, the passed pawn by white is connected and protected. Protected by a rook, connected to another pawn. So this is much different. This is much different than the positions we've seen, where it was 4 on 3 pawns on the same side of the board with kings in front of them. That was a completely different rook ending. This one is not drawn. This one is probably still better for white. Cole player saw the mate. If you guys don't know Max is Bad, Max is Bad is a 2500 online player from Australia. He's been hanging out on the show. A really cool guy. He's been very friendly and helpful with the lower rated players on the show, and he's been really helpful to me with analysis and stuff like that. So if you guys want to give Max a follow, that would be cool, man. Let's see what Mr. Stockfish has to say here. Yeah, I should have turned on Stockfish for all of those lines too, Mabjigair. I like to do it by myself to some degree, but when it's a critical line, I don't mind to turn on the computer. I mean, we live in a beautiful age of supercomputers, so let's take advantage of it. Okay, so Hessen Wrench pointed out that black had a mate option. Okay. Yeah, I missed all of that commentary. Well, I caught some of the third game. A little bit of the end of the second game as well. Magnus quickly nullified it. Exactly. So now we just got to win what looks like a winning endgame. Bertrand, I asked Gotham how can old people get better, and he called me a troll. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not really a big fan of Gotham chess anymore. I actually have a picture of him from Edmonton this year. And he made some ignorant comments to me, but I don't know, I don't remember, and I've checked my history. I don't ever remember him rating, but he seemed to think that he might have rated me and he didn't like me or something like that. He made some like innuendo to that effect, but he was kind enough to take a picture with me, and he was very funny. But I've seen him online being really rude to people and stuff, so he kind of seems like a dick if I'm being honest with you. Where's my picture? There we go. So there's me and Levi Rosman on the right hand side, but I've had enough experiences and heard enough stories about the guy that I've stopped watching his show. That I think he's got a little bit of an attitude problem. But anyways, there he is. And I got Kovalyev on the left, Anton Kovalyev. So black has plenty of comp here, says Max. I'm out. You'll have a good night. Keep being you. Thanks, Soltego. I appreciate that, man. There's a fucking great guy right there, Soltego. Let's give the guy a shout out. I'm sorry if you're already gone, Soltego. I'm just so stupid with the chat and stuff. I'm always behind. But thanks so much for joining, guys. Soltego took a little break, but if you guys don't know him, puts on a really fun show. Super friendly show. He's got a fun attitude and he's really smart. But what's one of the cool things about Soltego is if you donate any bits or subs to his show, he donates all of that to a local charity, and he's got a different one that he picks every month, and he picks good ones too, you know, like places that really need the help and that are kind of lesser known. So go give Soltego a check out. And he does a badass Christopher Walken imitation, much better than mine. Max's Bad says, my dad learned the moves when he was 50. That's amazing. And he's like 1600 now. There's a guy, man, I always remember his name and now it's escaping me when I need it. He's an Israeli grandmaster. It starts with a T. Darn it. Anyways, he became a grandmaster after the age of 50 for the first time in his life, which I think is really inspiring. It is absolutely not impossible to improve at an old age. It's mostly just a matter of, taking the time. You have to study every day. Max says his dad hasn't studied and got up to 1600 over the age to learn the moves over the age of 50. That's amazing. Just plays casually and watches me talk about games. That's cool, man. That's really cool, Max. A chess prodigy. That would be funny. A 50-year-old chess prodigy learns the moves at the age of 50 and then catapults to grandmaster in a few years. That would be amazing. That'd be the greatest story in the history of chess. Max is bad because I study every day. Puzzles 500 a day, maybe. Wow. Bullet teaches bad habits. Just trying to get caught up. Okay, so let's see how this endgame finishes off. Rook to d1, king e6, f4, c5. So this is kind of annoying that white has his king stuck on the back row. This is an important plus for black. Rook d5, rook to c2, h4, and c4. You might think, oh boy, how is white going to stop this pawn? But because the king is sort of far back in his position, he really doesn't have to worry about this pawn. Because at some point in time, this rook is going to have to move out of the way. And either the rook will be behind it, or the rook is going to have to move forward. Now, if your king is far advanced on the third row or higher, and it's not blockaded by any pawns, then there's a little trick where you can move the rook out with check, or with some sort of a threat. Right? Like let's say if the king was even here, or like something like that, then the rook could move out, to h1, threatening the queen once the pawn's on the 7th rank, and also there's this threat on the 2nd rank to win the rook. But anyways, we're not going to see any of those, but I'll show you when the moment comes what could be done. So anyways, all that to say that this pawn is actually not menacing. It's just something that white has to keep an eye on. So f4, f5, king f6. Whoops. He doesn't play g4. He plays the rook behind. h5. I think probably I would have played this g-pawn push first. But I think the reason why he kept this here is because he's hoping to get his king around to the g4 square. That's probably the reason why he's kept it back, yeah. Because he needs a place to hide eventually. So the rook back, h5, so black's going to try to take that spot away. King over to f1. Rook c3, king to g2. Rook takes pawn, king e5. I'm thinking these guys are probably really low on time here right now. They're just kind of playing on the theory that they already know. Holy cow, D-Punk just came in with 500. Stop yelling at Ernie. I just got a Bert and Ernie reference from D-Punk. What's up, man? How you doing? Thank you for that 500 biddies, man. That's amazing. Gotta give you some Timbits for that. Gotta give the man some Timbits after that big dono, man. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Here's some Timbits, ladies and gentlemen. Some of you might wonder what Timbits are if you're new to the Trout Show. They're donut holes. They're only available in Canada and participating countries that have Tim Hortons. Well, what's in a Timbit, you wonder? Jam. There's jam in there. And you know what else they have? Pudding. Timbits. They're delicious. And everybody in the Trout Show gets Timbits. There's some Timbits for you, D-Punk. Thank you for that big dono, man. That's very kind of you. Did anyone think Magnus might lose? There were times in the match I thought he might, but I never thought that he was going to get outplayed to lose. The only time I thought that he got outplayed where he could have lost was that classic Game 6, where they ended up where Fabi had the two pieces against one. That was the only one where Fabi legitimately outplayed him to the point of a win. The other games where Fabi had a winning position, I didn't think that he outplayed Magnus. I thought Magnus deliberately played overly aggressive moves that he didn't have to play. So I didn't think those were the same, but I thought just he got outclassed in Game 6 against Fabi, and he was fortunate to draw. He also played incredible defensive concepts to get into that quote-unquote fortress, if you want to call it that, even though the computer ended up spitting out that 30-move win line. But I thought that Fabi legitimately outplayed him. But other than that, no, I never thought that Fabi was going to outplay him to get a bunch of wins or something like that. But there were definitely moments in this match that Fabi absolutely could have won because of Magnus's poor form, I thought, at times. So the rook check, king takes, rook takes pawn, king, rook 2, g5, pawn push, rook takes, pawn push. Rook gets behind. So now what White's got to do is he's got to keep his king off of this 4th rank, or in White's case, I guess it's a 5th rank. And he's going to have to move his king up to the g4 square. The reason he has to do that is because he can't come out this way. So let's say, for example, king here, pawn to here, king to here, pawn to here, king to here, and White thinks, oh, I'm just going to walk over and start stealing pawns. Then, oh no, check. Oops, sorry. He would check him here. Right, the pawn would be on the black square. 1, 2, and then check. And now all of a sudden this pawn is going to queen. So he's got to either stay on the 2nd row, or if he wants to make progress, which he does, he's got to get himself up to g4. So that later on there's not going to be that check on g1 because the pawn blocks the check on g3. It's a very small but important point in this that a beginner should know. That you have to find a shelter for your king so that you can't use tricks once the pawn gets up to the 7th row. So the king, the pawn, the rook check. The reason why you can do that is because now if the king comes forward, he's got the g4 check, and then he's going to be able to hide instead on g5, so it's the same kind of a concept. So king comes back. I don't know why he made this king move backwards. I have no idea what this was about. I don't understand that move either. I guess his idea is if the pawn pushes now, maybe he's just going to come back here and push this pawn, and then he's going to slowly checkmate. Maybe he's already got enough stuff to checkmate black because he's got 2 pawns there. What do you think of that, Max? It's really good to watch stronger players play and explain their thought process. Says Max. You think king to h2 is more accurate? I mean, the problem now is if you come to g4, it's hard to make this progress. But still, like, I guess I can understand this g4 move because now he's threatening king to h4, and then he's got king to g5. The problem is if you play king here right now, then, you know, after the pawn push, you can't play king to g5 because you just got the rook over, and you can have a draw. So it's still technical. It's still a difficult technical position. Oh, after the g4 plan. I see what you mean. Okay. So now he can play this. Yeah, now he can play this. Because now he is going to get that g5 square. So the pawn push, king immediately. Again, that's the reason why. If you suddenly play the move like this, then oh no, now suddenly black is winning. That's exactly the kind of trick black was hoping for. So king over to f7, h6, rook g8. The rook check, he's just going to try to, if he could have chased that king out, he would have. And then marches white king up to the g7 square, and then push the pawn, very easy win. So black's going to try to stay in front of the pawn as long as he can. If he has to, he's prepared to queen and sack rook if he has to. So like, let's say, for example, if, I don't know, pawn here, here, and then king to here, then boom, check. And then you have to watch out what you're doing because now there's going to be stuff like this. You can even play here if you want to. Or you can just simply take this now. And we're going to have a Philidor's position. So, of course, white's not going to do that. It says rook takes, check, king, rook check, king back. And now the problem is that this pawn is going to be able to block again on g5. And we're just going to repeat the same process. He's going to keep trying to do this. And if at any point in time black tries to do something to pin that pawn, then the rook is going to go to the 3rd 6, I guess in this case, rank. And then he's going to put his king here again, and there's going to be a mate threat. Black can't stop the 2 connected pass pawns. So that game is over. But there were times in this endgame where I thought maybe black had drawing chances. But I guess not. Maybe I'm just completely wrong. So somewhere around here. Black went wrong. So taking this pawn turns out to be wrong. The computer, let's see what the computer says about this. The computer recommends rook to a2 check. Forces king to h3. If king to f3, we've got rook check again. So, sorry, king to h3. And now after king takes and rook takes. Rook to here. This is going to be a mate / draw threat. King to h2, check. Yeah, king here and check. So the problem is if, let's say, for example, pawn to here, then we've got king to f6, and this is a checkmate threat. So the king comes here, and then we've just got check again. And wherever you go, you're not going to be able to escape. You can't ever get out of the checks. So black did still have a draw there, even in this complicated position. And I think part of the reason was this g3 move. Let me see if we can go back and find where exactly he went wrong. Because this is still a winning position. Rook, pawn. Okay, maybe h4 wasn't perfect, but it's fine. Yeah, this was the move that was wrong, actually. It was this f5 move was wrong. The computer recommends king to f1. And after the rook check... Oh, I'm a little surprised by this move. I don't know if I'd buy that move. I think just probably king to f2 is better. And now after rook takes... Again, it's liking this move. I'm kind of feeling like this one is better. Danny was saying that taking on e4 was a mistake. Let's take a look at this line again here, because I want to make sure I understand. This is a kind of an important endgame. It seems pretty straightforward to me for white, but in practice against a guy like Fabi, this is still a lot of tricks. And rook endings are very, very mysterious. So taking on e4 for sure is a mistake. It's suggesting the rook to e2 to a2 first. The reason rook to a2 is dangerous is because I don't feel like the king can come out through f3, because you're going to get the check again, and the only way that he can make progress is like to abandon the g pawn. And then what? You've lost everything, right? You can't get this anymore. Your pawns are guarded by the king. Even if the check takes place, that doesn't really mean anything. You just play, I don't know, here, let's say. I would just play here, but it's suggesting even rook to f3. Pretty straightforward. It's going to be very easy to take this and just get behind the rook. No problem. No problem at all. So yeah, so this is a big improvement. And I guarantee if you, with longer time controls, Fabi would have found this move. He would have found this move. This move was just a little bit hasty, taking this e-pawn. Because now on taking, whoops, on king takes e4, now we've got the check, a very critical and important difference, chasing the king away from the square. So now the white king can escape if it has to, and there's no more mate threats when he's on h3. So the king takes the pawn, and then the rook takes, and now we're going to get this rook check. Very critical difference. Very nice technique by Magnus. Check on e7 exactly was the key. He had to get that king out of the way. And that's a pretty principled move. But to even have come up with this move was a clever idea by Magnus, but it doesn't he's probably already lost his advantage here. I mean, I'm trying to make this work, but it's not. I don't think that's going to work either. It's the same. I'm trying to find some way to sneak an extra tempo in here, but it's not going to work. So I think this was a good practical chance. Rook to c7, even though it doesn't quite work. because of the rook to a2. But after king takes pawn, this beautiful rook e7. Very nice technique. The key here is not just taking the pawn, but most importantly the fact that he can now get this rook to g5 in, and there's no way to stop that. He's keeping the king out from that square, so no more draw tricks. And there's no way to stop him from taking over here, so he's gonna be able to have time to take this, get behind this pawn, and hide his king, and then push his 2 advanced pawns. Very, very nice technique. Yeah, very nice reason. Very, very true, Max. That's why I like to take a look at these. You know, these rook and pawn endings, guys, you'll net a lot of points if you study your rook and pawn endings. It's fairly simple to understand. There's only so many ideas that are practical. And once you get those ideas, they're there forever, because those ideas will never change. The endgame never changes. Even in 1,000 years, these endgames will still be solid. It's not like an opening where it comes and goes with the passing of time and the style of the day. Not so sure he had advantage of the rook, king, and pawn ending. I still feel like he did, but only up until about... Once he played f5, I'm not so convinced anymore. But you make a good point, because the problem was that with that rook on c7, like how can white ever force his way off of that row? So he would have somehow had to come back and exchange rooks, but he can't do that because of the advanced a pawn. So maybe you're right. Maybe like if the pawns can't force through, I don't know, man. It's difficult. It's difficult to say. White still has to corral the g-pawn. There's still some work to be done for white in that endgame. But I do still feel that white had that advantage. But after the move f5, black has some draw checks. And it just makes sense that you should keep your pawns together like that, because of the fact that you can't move your king off the back rank. Yeah, I mean, it's nice if you can learn certain parts of chess like that, because what happens is later on, Vertwitch, is you'll find yourself in some middle game, and your opponent suddenly starts wanting to trade off some pieces, or maybe you can like make a pawn exchange. As Ohoy is making a splash on the Trout Show. What's up, Ohoy? How you doing, man? So sometimes you can find yourself in a middle game where suddenly you realize, okay, if I exchange this set of pawns, I can take control of the d-file with my rook. The only way my opponent can stop me is by opposing it with his heavy pieces. And by doing that, I swap off a bunch of pieces and find myself in this winning rook and pawn ending. So you can be in the middle, even sometimes in an opening, or in the middle of a middle game, in an otherwise very innocuous looking position where everything looks normal, and suddenly you can recognize a pattern from an endgame, and you can realize, if I can get into this position, that's a winning game. It's not that you're calculating 40 moves in advance to when you're actually going to shake hands because you've won the game. You just know that a certain type of position is winning. So whatever your opponent plays, you'll figure that out and you'll deal with it as it comes. But knowing these little nuggets is very, very handy. Knowing what kind of positions are winnable and what kind of techniques can win those positions, it's very, very valuable. Hey, RPD's in the house. Magnus has won RPD. Magnus is the repeat world champion. He has retained his title on tie-breaks. They went to the rapid tie-breaks. This was game 13. In the end, this was the final position of game 13. And white is going to push his 2 pawns. And the rook, it's unstoppable. The king's already on the back row. Magnus won the tie-break 3-0. 3-0. He absolutely crushed Fabi like a bug. That being said, I don't actually know how to do the bishop and knight mate. I mean, I think at your level, Max, I don't know that that's really important, because you'll just figure it out when you get to the board. I don't have any doubt that you could very easily win a bishop and knight ending, if that were on the odd chance that ever happened. I've gotten once over the board and managed to figure it out, but it took ages of thinking. Yeah, it's a bit tricky. It's a bit tricky if your opponent plays it really, really well. There's more difficult lines, but yeah, at your level, I don't think. I mean, it's nice, again, if you know the technique, just because it saves some brain energy, but at your level, I don't think it's super, super valuable. Yeah, I agree, RPD. I still feel that he's the best player, and he's proved it now. Magnus Carlsen is the best player in the world. It was close, guys. Fabi played amazing. He was full game for the victory. He very well could have won. He had several games where he had winning chances, but he had difficulty pulling the trigger when it came down to it. He had a little bit of stage fright. He had a little bit of psychological barrier. Maybe it was just his style, whatever it was. But when the moments came that he had a chance to strike, he didn't take them. Remember that move h3 instead of queen h5? You know, there was that 30 move win that got spit off by the computer in game 6. So there were definitely moments. There were definitely chances that he had. But in the end, Carlsen, the only game that I thought, like I say, that Carlsen got into trouble legitimately, not through any fault of his own, just through Fabi outplaying him, was in game 6. In game 6 in that first Petrov, I thought Fabi completely outplayed him, starting with the plan c5. I thought he totally took advantage of that poor choice of openings with that knight d3 Petrovs. I mean, that's a nice trick. You can try that if you want. It's not losing or anything like that. But Carlsen couldn't possibly have thought that Fabi wouldn't be aware of the existence of that line. And I thought Fabi was the clearly better player that whole game and deserved to win it, but he didn't. He couldn't make it happen. Yeah, when I used to do chess camps with Tom O'Donnell, who's an international master from Canada, about a 2450, 2475 rated player locally. But when I used to do the chess camps with him, he would make the little kids in our chess camps do the bishop and knight. He would just spend one day and he would make them memorize it, and then it would just be out of the way. Kind of like, you know, when I was a kid, they made me the day that I got my social insurance number, I was made to memorize it, and I was really angry at the time. I'm like, why do I have to memorize this? Why did I get the card if I have to memorize it? And they're like, well, you're going to thank me for the rest of your life. You're going to learn it. You're going to learn it in one day. I'm going to test you for the next week. Every time I see you, I'm going to ask you what's your number. You're going to remember it, and you'll never have to think about it ever again, and you'll thank me for the rest of your life. And they were right. They were absolutely right. And I'm so glad that I did that. So now I don't have to look at my card. I can just rattle it off the top of my head. And I still see people to this day, full-grown adults, that have to whip out their social insurance number and memorize it because they didn't take that time when they were kids. So it's one of those kinds of things. It's if you just do it, then it's out of the way. You know what I mean? And you can do it in a day. So if you really want to do it, you can do that. But I think at this point in time, once you get to that level, max, I mean, like even at 2,000, I don't really think you need to do that anymore. But definitely at 2,500, I don't think you need to worry about that. I mean, I can do it, but I also have to think about it. I know the W format. I know the basic concept. Get the king into the wrong colored corner. Eventually it's going to end up on the white square next to the corner, and then you're going to drive him along the side of the board more or less into the far corner. But he can go so far as getting off of that back row all the way to this square right here, which is on the 6th rank. He can get as far out as that again after you've chased him to the side. So it can be very, very annoying to have to let him out just a little tiny bit and then corral him back into that corner. So it's difficult. It's not easy. Okay, let's see what else we got here, guys. Let's take a look at this next game. This is the game that Fabi blundered. This is a game Fabi was really upset about afterwards. He was not happy with the way that this one went. And if you guys were with me on the last stream, you might remember we looked at a game that Fabi lost in 11 moves. And if you go to chessgames.com and look up the history of the games between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana, you will find a number of short games. 11, 14, 17 moves, those kind of level of games where Fabi just made a blunder and Carlsen smoked him. That's what happened in this game. It wasn't as fast because it was a long opening. It was a Sveshnikov again. So let's take a look at this one. So we got again into an open. They've given up on the Rosalimo. They've decided that opening isn't going to lead any place. And once again, we have this move, knight to d5. I wonder if we're going to see a real resurgence of this line because of how difficult it was for Fabi or for Magnus to get anything against it. But I must say that this game might have put a damper on that party because Magnus crushed so badly. So pawn takes, knight to e7. We saw this the last time they played this Sveshnikov. Earlier in the match, Magnus Carlsen twice essayed the move knight to b8, trying for a regroup this way. But knight to e7 makes a lot of sense. Knight to we're going to go to e7 in the Sveshnikov anyways. The reason why it seems kind of strange right now is because you're blocking in your own bishop. So it's just kind of a weird... can somebody block that guy, please? I don't see him in my followers list. But anyways, it's just kind of it seems like a funny thing to block your own bishop. Whoops. Block your own bishop on e7. But this knight is going to remaneuver either to f5 or g6. I think Magnus chose g6 again in this game, but I feel like knight to f5 might be objectively better. But I think he just doesn't want to. He doesn't want to block his f pawn here. So he's going to play to g6. He's going to unfold his knight that way, and then he's going to move forward with his kingside attack. The knight on g6 also provides some excellent defensive prospects for black, and considering he's only got the one knight, so. And it also maybe it just kind of deters him from like getting hasty and playing his g pawn up too fast. RPD coming in with that 3 month sub badge and floating some fish. What's up? What's up, RPD? RPD. Well, we've played a match before, and we're gonna do it again now that we can do the video links. Now we know how to do that. So me and RPD are gonna do a dual stream again soon, I hope. So we got c4, knight to g6. Hey, Rufus and Doofus in the house. What's up? This is painful to watch. I hear you, Rufus. I hear you. And you know, Fabi was amazing. Fabi was amazing, Rufus. Don't worry. He is going to be back at the World Championship again. He played amazing. He absolutely could have won this. You know, it's sad that the World Championship has to be decided in a rapid. It's not fair. It's not fair, but those are the parameters. It's not Magnus's fault. It's not Fabi's fault either. Those are the conditions of the match, and maybe I don't know what they're going to do in the future. I don't know. We might be moving towards faster time controls in the future, not slower. But I feel you should at least win one game at regular time control to be because otherwise, why not just call it the Rapid Championship if the game's going to be decided on Rapid games anyways? So, I mean, I feel for you, Rufus, but Fabi did something really great for American chess, for North American chess, and I think you're going to see an explosion, and I think that you're going to see Fabi back, and he's going to be savvier. And I think if this match takes place a second time, I do not believe that Magnus will win the rematch. I do not believe that. So if you see Fabi back here in 2020, I think we will see Fabiano Caruana as a world chess champion. So keep heart and have faith. But what did you think of the games today, Rufus? I mean, besides feeling sad about them, how did you think about the quality of them? So here we got this queen to a4, bishop to d7. We've seen this move before. Queen b4. This move is a little bit unique. This might even be a novelty. I didn't watch the game live, so I don't know if anyone can tell me, but this move seems like a novelty. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting idea. We looked at some lines in the previous game where the queen ends up going over to b8, but in a different situation, just as a way to try to hold on to that d-pawn. So it's very interesting that he chooses it now. Maybe it's possible that a6 and b5 are coming up at some point in time, try to stymie this pawn. In the past, I believe the move was to play bishop to, was it bishop here or was it bishop to f5? Might have been bishop to f5. And then we saw this, and then you could have a repeat of the position. But at any rate, here we have queen to b6. And then this move h4, as I've mentioned before, you don't ever want to mess with this h-pawn in a Sveshnikov. There's always some cutesy trick. In this line, it doesn't make any difference because there's not the queen on it. But even in the other line, you don't want to start messing around with this pawn. Even in the main lines, there's always going to be some sort of a disaster. You don't want to open up those files on your king. So h5, I'm just going to try to stop white from playing h5. Bishop to e3. Now comes a6. Knight back to c3. The reason why you can play to c3 instead of a3 in this line is because the c4 pawn push has already been played. Although it was probably also playable for white to play knight to a3, but it's not necessary now. And plus the c4 is occupied by the c4 pawn. So better to play knight to c3 here. Or else it will be Ding as the contender. More likely, I think Fabi was never ahead and got blown out of all three games of shutout. Yeah, today it was rough. I think the first game he could have drawn that easily, and maybe things could have been very different. I think that would have been a confidence booster for him to some degree. So I would have liked to seen that. As far as the next turn, it could very well be Liren Ding. There's several others. I'm not going to get too onto the Liren Ding train yet. It's kind of like, you know, when some hot new pitcher comes up in baseball or some hot new quarterback comes up in football and nobody knows who they are yet, so they don't have any notes on them. So like that guy's first game, they come out and crush everybody, you know what I mean? Like Tom Brady, right? But in Tom Brady's case, he actually turned out to really be a good quarterback, a tremendous quarterback, even though I hate the guy. You know, sports hate. I don't actually hate the guy, but sports hate him. But I know Rufus loves him, but once you, like, unless you are really a legend like that, you know, people will eventually figure out your style and they'll start preparing more for you. Same thing in baseball. You get a great pitcher comes out, nobody's seen them before, and they can come out and pitch a no-hitter in their first game or come close to it because nobody knows what they're going to throw. Nobody's ever seen them pitch before. But, you know, once you start, you know, getting scouting reports on them and stuff, then you can figure out how you can deal with them. And then suddenly they're not so great. And I feel like that's going to happen with Liren Ding, and I don't think he's winning a lot of games anyways. He just gets a lot of draws. So although he's phenomenal, don't get me wrong, I really, really like the guy. I would love to see him win a world championship. I would absolutely love to see a Chinese world champion. I think that would be fantastic for the sport. But I'm not going to be so quick to jump on that bandwagon that, yeah, he's the guy. He's the guy for sure. I mean, he's kind of, he's too new for me yet. Okay, could somebody ban that guy as well, please? Would somebody please ban that guy if you see his name out there? These are just guys, there's a couple of them, the double anal guys out there as well, so it doesn't matter, you just ban them when they come up. But if you guys know, can find those guys in your chat box, you might have to refresh or something, but if you can get rid of the Sandy Hook shooter and the anal guy, I'd appreciate that. I don't need those pieces of shit on my show. Cold player. Cold player's got to get. There you go, Rufus. You got an ally in cold player. I always thought MVL would have been the star, but the last couple of years he hasn't come through, and Tom Brady is the GOAT, says Rufus. Yeah, MVL is still, you know, that caliber. He could still do it. I was talking earlier, Rufus, about how I thought that Bu Zhangzi, who I met in 2007, got a chance to shake his hand and talk to him a little bit. He didn't really speak any English, but I had some friends introduce me, so I was able to have it translated and stuff. But I always thought that Bu Zhangzi was going to be a legitimate world champion contender. He was the youngest grandmaster at the age of 13 at one point in time. And for years, he really was largely responsible for the chess explosion in China. Now there's all these guys you've never even heard of who are like this. There's this Yang Yi guy. I think Quinn sent me a game. I don't know if you're still out there, Quinn. Or maybe it was the Liren Ding game, but there's a Yang Yi game that is just like legendary, like one of the greatest games of the last 100 years. So there's other guys who could maybe be a challenger from China. But I haven't given up on Bu Zhangzi yet, and I still feel like he could potentially be that. I haven't given up on Timur Radyabov. I'm not ready to give up on these guys yet. They're still pretty elite level. I know they're not young anymore, but I'm not ready to give up on those guys yet. So we'll see how it goes. I'm not willing to give up on Levon Aronian either, or Shakhriyar Mamedyarov. I would love to see a Mamedyarov match. I'd like to see Nakamura. I just don't think Matt Nakamura has the psychology. Number one, he's lazy. Number two, he doesn't take enough time. Number three, his ego is too big. And number four, he gets very despondent when he loses. He's not having fun anymore. He doesn't like chess when he's not winning. So I feel like if he loses a couple of games quickly, he'll just be kind of like, well, what's the point? I don't think he has the mentality to be a world champion. Does he have the quality of chess? Hell yes. Nakamura could be a monster. Nakamura could be a monster. So we'll see how that all goes down. But I'm like Nakamura is one of the only guys in the world who could just utterly destroy Magnus Carlsen in a classical chess game. He could miniature him like he was a potser. Naka has that level of skill. I just don't think that he could beat him in a match. Thanks, Lucy, for that ban. I appreciate that. Yeah, Pragnanata is going to be very interesting, Lucy, over the coming years. Very interesting. And another guy I really enjoy his style is Vidit. I don't even remember how to pronounce his first name, But that Indian Grandmaster Vidit is extremely talented, extremely talented. I think he could be a world champion contender. I really do. Magnus chose Liren Den for a bunch of games. So I'm just catching up on the chat here. Yeah, there's a lot of really good kids. You're right, Max, and who knows who's going to come out. India is still producing all kinds of young talent. I would love to see another Indian world champion. I think that would be fantastic. I want chess to be a truly international game. So I like to see people from all over the world winning. But by that stretch, that's why it kind of would have been nice to see Fabio win, because it's been so long since there's been a North American world champion. Kamsky was a contender, but that was through like the, you know... Anyways, he never won. That's the important thing. And so we haven't had a charismatic, you know, young, positive chess world champion out of America in so long. And even when we had a champion, it was Fischer. He was charismatic, but he was also kind of nuts and had a bad attitude. So Fabio would have been so good for chess. So that part is disappointing. Although I will say again that I was rooting for Magnus because I do believe that he's the best player in the world. But I would have been really happy to see Fabi too. Pragnanata, and who's the other guy? Who's the other young guy there? He's from that part of the world too. Dang it. Paramarian Nagy? Do you guys know who I'm talking about? Paramarian Nagy or something like that? Have you guys ever seen that guy's play? That guy's a real freaking talent too, man. Meg Sudlu's analysis, even though he's a bit older, he's like 2,700 at 18 as well. Wow. And if you guys know JJ Chess or JJ Samurai, who comes on and hangs out with us plebs, hangs out here and streams on Twitch. He's a young guy. He's in his early 20s, Turkish grandmaster. He now lives in St. Louis, and he's really driving hard to the hoop as well. You know, you might think that 23 is a little bit old and stuff like that, but who's to say, guys? Who's to say that guys that age couldn't make a big run? You know what I mean? So who knows? Who knows who's going to come up next? Who's going to be the next best star or a big star? Naka has a massive tilt versus Magnus. That's a good point as well. He just caves when they play over the board. Yeah, that's true. Vertwitch makes a good point. I think the next WCC will be the guy that studies and applies the most. And that happens to be in that level exactly. Whoever wants it the most. Reminds me of like, I don't know if you guys remember this. Remember the Olympics where Tyson Gay won the gold medal? And do you remember it was like him and I think maybe it was like Green was the other... Green was the previous Olympic champion and... I can't remember who the third guy was, but it was like 3 Americans, and they were all neck and neck, and they were running up. And if you watch it in slow motion, you see that he's running. Tyson Gay is running, and he suddenly kind of looks over and he realizes that both of the guys are out of breath and they're neck and neck with him, and he still had something in the tank, and he put a little extra gear on, and he just outpaced them by a half step. He just had a little something extra in the tank, and it was like you could see in his face the moment when he realized, this is mine. I'm the world's best. I'm the world's fastest man. This is mine for the taking. And he took it. He put the work in. He had the skills, and he realized it was his for the taking, and that's why he was a gold medalist. And I think something like that's going to happen in chess. Somebody's going to come along. They're going to be neck and neck with Carlsen, and there's suddenly one game they're going to realize, this is mine. I'm the world champion. I'm the world's best chess player. I can take this guy. That's going to happen soon, guys. Magnus can't stay champion forever. Cole Player says, to be honest, I'm not ruling myself out from winning the candidates. Okay. Hey, man, I like the confidence. Ginger Master was coming in earlier and saying I could easily beat Magnus from this position or that. So I'm liking the confidence in the chat. Okay, Cole Player's going for the candidates, folks. Sam Sevian, I'm not sold yet on that, although I'm pretty impressed with what he's done. Who's that other guy? Robson. He was another young Grandmaster. I think there's another guy now that's even younger than Sam Sevian was when he became Grandmaster. That would be cool, Rufus. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe Sam Shankland. Maybe Sam Shankland's your next world champion. A Wander Liang. There's another guy. I think that's the name of the guy. Wander Liang. That's the young American that's younger now than Sevian. Yeah. Good call, Lucy. Good call. Yeah, that kid's he's just pure analysis, that kid. Jeffrey Zong, there's another good name. Yeah, you guys know all the names, man. That's cool. I'm impressed that you guys know all of these guys. Some real chess players in the house here. Jeffrey Zong is coming strong. Do you know him? If not, take a look. Yeah, I do certainly know about him, Abjigare. Yeah, very, very amazing player. Who did I see him? Was it Isle of Man? There was some big tournament recently. Maybe you might have been in St. Louis. Can't remember where I saw him, but I saw him playing recently. And I was extremely impressed. Shanklin had a massive breakthrough, plus 70 points. Yeah, exactly. And even at 2650, I always thought that Shanklin was dramatically overrated. I thought he basically got that by like taking advantage of like quote unquote ordinary grandmasters in America. I had never seen him play any place substantial, but then he wins the U.S. Championship. He wins the Capablanca Memorial. What was the other one? He won another big tournament, and then he goes to a Super Grandmaster tournament finally, holds his own against the world's best players easily. So I have to say now that Sam Shanklin is legitimate, even though I don't like his style. Rufang Li. Now that's a guy I don't know, Rufus. That's the one you'll have to tell me about. I'll have to go take a look at him. I'm not familiar with Rufang Li. But the other guys, I'm familiar with all of them. Sam Sevian I've been watching for a while. Naka, I remember watching Naka when he was 7, 8 years old, whatever. I remember when he was trying to become the youngest master in American history. I remember him taking the world's youngest grandmaster title in the history of America from Bobby Fischer at the age of 15. So I like to follow these young prospects, especially North American prospects, and see how they're doing. Max says, no way, Shanklin. No Durbek Abdusatorov. I don't know that guy at all. Never heard of that. Thank you, Veritwitch, for that delete. I appreciate that. Getting rid of the trolls. You guys are doing great mod jobs. Veritwitch is not even a mod on here. Nerudisky will never be a world champion. I'll tell you why. He's a bullet and blitz specialist. He's like Nakamura. I'll tell you who else is not going to be a world champion if he doesn't learn how to play some legitimate chess. Is going to be Firouzja. Firouzja is absolutely talented. I don't know if I've ever seen a talent like that. I've seen him demolish the world's greatest blitz and bullet players. I've seen him demolish them. The concepts he comes up with instantly just blow my face off. But those guys don't play in Super Grandmaster tournaments, and there's a good reason why. They're not good enough. They can't win those tournaments. When did you ever see Nerudisky in a world like in some like Tata Steel or like Wiccan Z? Nerudisky cannot compete for the world championship. He's not even close. He's a savant. He's a blitz player. He will never be a world champion. He's a worse version of Naka, and I don't think Naka's ever going to be a world champion either. If you want to be a world champion, you got to get off of the blitz and go play some legitimate chess. It can't be an ego thing, you know. Oh, look at what a great blitz number I got. You got to go out and play legitimate chess and improve. If you guys can get rid of this guy as well, it's just the same guy. He's figured out that I'm not in the 10-minute follower mode, but I'm not going to cave in and put people back on the 10-minute follower mode right now. So we're just gonna keep banning this guy over and over again, which is great because every time he puts one of these accounts out, we get to ban another account. So that's great. And this guy has to sit around making up email account after email account so he can spam our show just to get banned before he can even get his words out there. Neruditsky had that beautiful win against Fabi in the U.S. Championship. I actually didn't see that game, but that's interesting. I'd like to see that one. I haven't seen that one, Lucy. Lazaro Bruzon, yeah, he's a good player. He's not a world champion contender, though. He's close, but not enough. Thanks, Lucy. Lucy's doing an awesome job today with the mods. Let's give a love bomb for all of my mods for doing such great work out there. Boy, I appreciate you guys. There's some days where I don't have mods, so I really appreciate you guys hanging around doing that. A love bomb for Abjigare, Lucy, Rufus. And we've also got, just now, we've got Braden is in the house. What is up? Braden says, I am the next world champion. Well, you got to start playing and streaming again then, man. If you want to be the world champion, I think to be the world champion, we tested it, we put it to the test, but I think you have to win at least one game. Okay, that was put to the test this world championship, but generally speaking, you're supposed to win at least one game of chess in order to be the world chess champion. How you doing, Braden? VIP Braden Lawlin is in the house. I'm probably saying your name, totally butchering it, but I apologize for that. And some love back from Rufus. Oh man, always with the emotes. You're really kind of twisting my arm here to get that app, Rufus, because I'm so jealous of your emotes. Camel Clutcher was in earlier, and he was just dropping these badass emotes. I was so impressed. Okay, let's finish off this game, guys, because it doesn't go too much longer. So again, just to recap, we're taking a look at this game 2, which was actually game 14 of the match, but game 2 of the rapid 4-game match. Played earlier today between Magnus Carlsen and Fabiano Caruana. Fabia's white plays the same variation of the Sveshnikov we've seen before. Magnus switches from earlier knight b8 to knight e7, which he's also played once before. c4, knight g6, queen, bishop, queen b4, queen b8, h4, h5, bishop to e3. Now comes a6, knight to f3, and then a5. And we saw this kind of a concept earlier as well. This is more of the concept is to gain a little bit of space. You don't want white to start running a pawn up to the a5 square and then hop a knight in on b6. That's caused Magnus some problems in the past. So first he makes the small improvement to play a6 first, chasing the knight, and then he gets away with a5. So the queen's going to go back to b3. Once again, he pushes this pawn. So he's gotten 3 moves consecutively with this pawn. So now it's black who's gaining some space. The downside is now he's got a far advanced pawn, so he's got to keep an eye out for that. Queen back to d1, bishop to e7, g3, and queen to c8. How can I be the man? Oh, you're talking to Max. My internet's a bit garbage again. Okay, Max. Hey, man. Thank you so much for hanging around and for all your commentary and stuff like that. It's really cool to have you on the show. Really proud to have you as a member. We might have to give you I'm trying to get, how many viewers we got, guys, right now? Do we have 25 viewers in the house? If we've got 25 viewers in the house, maybe we can, because I'm trying to get some more VIP badges. Yeah, Max was watching me in like 160 pixel definition. Just 19? Okay. Cool, thanks guys. Let me know if you guys see that number get up over 25. I should have done it when Soltego came in with a raid. Yeah, I'm on, 25 is the next barrier I gotta crack. I've already done the 20. Hey, Chesspatzer Wales in the house. What's up, man? Chesspatzer Wales is in the house, the Babooninator. I was watching your show a little bit earlier, but I guess you were preoccupied with your games, so we didn't get a chance to chat more. But been missing you, Babooninator. So I'm glad to have you here, man. I miss you when you're not around. So Veritwitch is not hosting. Thank you, Veritwitch. Appreciate that. Yeah, but once we get 25 people, I feel like that's kind of a slam dunk. At least whoever's still physically there will have the courtesy to spam an emote or something like that. But we'll give it a try. But once we do that, we're going to give Max a VIP. But anyways, it was nice to have you here, Max. So let's see how this game turns out. So queen to c8. So I really like this maneuver. Queen to b8 and queen to c8. Gonna start taking advantage on the white squares now. Bishop can't go to h3 to oppose the bishop on d7. Has to now go to e2. Much like with white, you shouldn't be messing with these h-pawns. The bishop comes over. Rook c1, so he's again trying to threaten this c-pawn push someday. Bishop takes, queen takes. Queen f5 is a beautiful move. Wow. Queen f5 is a beautiful concept. He's just taking advantage of these white squares here. The knight can't come to e4. The queen can't come to f3. And in the event of a pawn push, in some lines you might be able to also push the z-pawn. And then the knight's going to come into e5. And then there's all kinds of juicy white squares for that knight to land in. So I like this move a lot, queen f5. What does the computer say about this? The computer thinks just castling is a good move here. But if you play this move, suddenly the computer realizes, that might even be better. And you're going to see why in a minute. So queen f5. He does play this c5, and this move's a little bit... what does the computer say here? I really like this queen move. It actually thinks that white's doing good here, but I have to disagree. I think that this move is really powerful, and I think that black is starting to get the practical winning chances here. This move is probably hasty. It's nice that I linger in your memory like a dose of chicken pox. Right, right. The chicken pox of the Twitch world. Crab building. Yeah, I swear I thought that emote of Vince Silden's was a crab. It looks like a crab's body, and he's got his little pincers out front there, you know? Like kind of like a little mini Zoidberg. I'm a big adult cartoon fan, so that's a Futurama reference if you guys didn't know that. So the pawn goes forward. These pawns are going too far. I'm not really buying this plan for white. So he's managed to make a pass pawn, but these pawns are going to roll so quickly, and there's plenty of defenses back here. I would say that this knight on g6 is a problem. So you're going to imagine that this e-pawn is going to get pushed soon. Rook's going to come over to c8 first. Queen to c4. The bishop goes back again. He's just going to try to keep a vice down on this pawn. So now, although this is a very dangerous looking pawn, it's also temporarily a backwards pawn. There's no real way to protect it, so it's got to be protected with pieces. And then here, I think, is where he makes his blunder. This move is a blunder. Even this move is not really a blunder. It's just that it gives black this combination that's going to come up. And it's pretty obvious to see why he wants to do that. He simply wants to push his c-pawn. And then once the bishop moves, then he's going to play knight to b6. This looks very dangerous. And if you were to play this side as black, any one of us would probably crumble. We would probably crumble in this position. You have to be Magnus in order to win a game like this, especially against Fabiano. How Magnus dreamed up this combination is completely beyond me. And he must have seen it in advance. I thought maybe he had to play like bishop. I don't really know what he's supposed to do here. And maybe that's what Fabi was hoping for. Was that he's going to have to play this bishop move. Now let's see what the computer says. Now he was just going to move over that, and that makes a lot of sense. I was going to say he could just go over to g2, but now the computer is suggesting that queen f3 is problematic. But it still seems to think that white's okay here. As Lundiz TV comes in with some sound alerts. What is up, Lundiz? Welcome, welcome. Going over this Fabi Carlsen game. So look at this move, guys. e5. Keep an eye on this, folks. Keep an eye on this move. Why would black want to move forward like that, fixing his pawn on the e4 square and blocking his own queen on the diagonal? What was the point of that? The pawn push goes forward. Doesn't it look like knight to b6 is coming? Doesn't it look like knight b6 is coming? Look at the shot. Bishop takes the pawn. Fabi must have I bet you Fabi saw this as soon as he put the piece down. But it must have looked like this is just winning, right? Because what are you going to do? Bishop here and then knight to here. Isn't this like the end of the road? In fact, even if you wanted to in this position, you might even be able to play like the bishop move. Oh, you can't do that because the knight is on e7. But what a shot, man. Bishop takes c7. You guys seeing this? Look at this move. Knight takes, knight to e5. Knight to e5, and the knight is coming in, folks. The knight is coming into d3. The knight is coming into d3, and I think all that he can maybe do is like queen here. But then I think he's got rook takes. No, I suppose first he would have to do the knight check. If the king comes here, then queen f3, that's the end of the game. So probably he's got to play here, king up. What happens here, guys? What am I missing? I mean, that's probably already enough, but I feel like I think I'm missing something here. Let's see what the computer says. Let's see what happens after queen here. So knight check. Let's see what happens after the king move. Oh, it just suggests to get the rook out of the way. And now you're just going to move up this way or take this pawn. You have two threats here. I feel like this is also a pretty easy win, but that's only by 3. So there's another guy you guys can block. This is some poor loser who has no job, and he's in a cockroach apartment, and he's probably hungry. He's running low on ramen noodles, and no girlfriend, no family, no friends, just not happy with his life, and he's sitting around making email accounts over and over again so that he can spam the show just to get barred and then do it again, just so he can have some like human contact. It's pretty sad. It's pretty sad. But if you guys can give that guy a block, just so we don't have to wallow in that poor man's misery. I hope he finds some help. So yeah, but it turns out that in this line, so now it's suggesting just king over to f2, but it's the same thing's going to happen. But the only difference is this line you don't have to worry about the pin. But then now you're just going to win a free piece out of the deal. So that's it. That's the end of the game. So this is how it finished off in the end. What a shot in the dark. Magnus saw this as soon as he played e5. This was why he played that move. So we're going back to this position here. The bishop back, the knight, and boom, e5. Or e4, sorry. e4. Brilliant move. Pawn push, bishop takes, knight 2, e5. Fabi tries a beautiful resource that I would have never found. Knight 2, d5. The threat is simply that he's going to play the knight to e7. The rook is guarded by the bishop on e3, but it doesn't make any difference. The black king just moves out of the way. The computer actually doesn't like that move. It suggests king to f8 instead. But I don't see what difference it makes. Completely winning position. No more fork, and the queen's going to move out of the way, and we're just going to have check. What else could he try? Queen here or something like that? Hey, Chess Crab's raiding with a party too. What's up, Chess Crab? Where's Vince Silden, man? Put out your emote. Tell me, Chess Crab, this emote doesn't look like a crab from far away. How you doing tonight, Chess Crab? Another Australian player in the house. Did I hear you talking about my life? Why was I saying, talking about that guy with the ramen noodles? No, you're doing way better than that guy. You got a family who loves you, and all kinds of hilarious computer graphics and a successful chess stream. That other poor gentleman's got nothing going on. Massive party, I know, right? I'm very good at running like a crab, that's about it. As long as you're not pinching the wrong people. So so that was game 2, folks. So that look at that blunder, and it was a one mover. Hey, Abjigir coming in with 200 bits. What, dude? That's amazing, man. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Abjigir, man. Abjigir is number 2 on this list, but Abjigir is like only JPS has donated more bits in the history of this show than Abjigir. Abjigir has been around since before affiliation on the Trout Show, and he's also quite a dramatically stronger player than me as well. So it's always a pleasure to have you around. Braden Laughlin, our resident music and movie expert. Just don't ask him who the best director of all time is, because you'll get a funny answer that's not correct. But other than that, he's a real like guru, and he's also a heck of a chess player, a fellow Canadian. Although he doesn't seem to be aware that Canada is a country, strangely enough. But Braden Lachlan, the VIP, is in the house as well. Got to go get some breakfast. Be right back, hopefully. Cool, man. I'll be on for a little while. Man, Rufus with the emotes. Amazing. I love those. So that's how fast things went downhill, guys. Very, very quickly. We just found ourselves in this situation. It looks like white is crushing, doesn't it? Doesn't it look like an absolute crush? You can take this pawn. You can take here. Or play the knight forward. The pawn push is coming. It looks like a crush. Only Magnus could come up with something like this. Bishop takes, knight to e5. Brilliant. Brilliant, I tells you. So by the time we got to this final game, folks, Fabi is in a life and death situation. Even a draw here was enough for Magnus to win. So now Fabi was forced to take risks, which is the reason why I thought that I predicted in the beginning that Magnus would win this match by 2 games clear, because I thought he could win 1 game, and then when it came down to the final game, that Fabi would be forced to take risks that normally he wouldn't take, which is not really his style, and I thought Magnus would outplay him in those kinds of positions, and that's what happened here in this 3rd game. So here we have Magnus again as white, e4, c5, knight f3, e6, so here we have a con variation. Con! Right, Rufus? Con! The bug in ear variation, okay? The earwig in the ear variation. Draws piss me off, says the chess crab. Isn't Canada just one of Alaska's counties? No, of course not. Canada is America's hat. All right, and Alaska is the feather in America's hat. Okay? Or you could say that America is Canada's pants. All right? Whichever one you prefer. Florida is America's wang. Windsor is Canada's anus. Okay? And that's how it rolls. It's just like that. That's right, Rufus. Come on! Best Star Trek movie of all time, by the way. Don't even talk to me about other movies. Okay? Star Trek 1 and 3 were also good, but con. Okay? Ricardo Montalban. Come on. Star Trek 2. Best Star Trek movie ever. When Spock died, we were all in tears. Weren't we? Weren't we all in tears? Of course we were. Yeah, I'm sorry if that was a spoiler. I'm sorry if you guys haven't seen that movie yet and I just spoiled it for you. You're like, what? Spock died? No! No, I liked him. All right, c4. Yeah, it's not so easy to draw Magnus, but a draw wasn't good enough. A draw he would have lost, right? So he didn't want to come out and have a tepid draw. In fact, Magnus played a couple of absolutely just brilliant moves to secure this game. So pawn takes, knight takes. We're going to end up with kind of a Maroczy format. I like this way of playing. This c4 move is really a neat idea. I've never seen this against this opening before, and I'm going to consider playing this again in the future. I love this variation. I hate the con variation so much. That's the reason why I stopped playing the Rosalimo and the Moscow, because I kept getting this stupid con variation. That's why I won't play an open Sicilian. But this c4 might revive me. I'm going to take a look into this. Because the thing about the Mora, even though I love it and I have really good results with it, it's not fundamentally sound. If somebody just takes the pawn and then develops normally, you're just down a pawn. It sucks. You know, so they start getting desperate and trying to force d5, then you can do something with it. But I really like this move order, so we're going to have a Maroczy variation. Then it's going to come back to c2 immediately. That's a clever move. So he's not going to give any queen b6 options. So let's say if bishop to here and then queen to here or something. Kind of an annoyance. It doesn't have to be right away, but just those kind of ideas are there. So then it goes back to c2, knight f6, knight c3, castle, bishop e3. So that's guarded now by the knight on c2. We get b6, bishop e2, bishop to b7, which just got to get castled right now. Queen to e7, queen to d2, so we've connected our rooks. The opening is over. 11 moves in. Rook over to d8 and rook to d1. Then comes this move, knight to e5. That's a pretty recurring motif. In this particular game, the bishop's not on d3 like in some of the Maroczy lines of the Mora, where they push that pawn and have to take it with a bishop. In that line, sometimes you're forced to give up the bishop because you have to protect your b-pawn, or you might have to move back to e2, but then you got to watch out for the knight going to g4. Veritwich thinks the Sicilian has been revitalized, but I don't think the Sicilian was ever like having any problems on the world stage. I don't know if the Sveshnikov and the Rosalimo were the most popular openings in the Sicilian, or the Khan, but maybe you'll see like some new ideas in those lines now. Maybe you'll see that. So bishop takes and pawn takes. So now black's opened up the b file temporarily, but it doesn't look like much is going on here. f4, knight back to g6, queen to e3, a clever little move. There's been a number of moves in this game you're going to see with this queen by Carlsen. He's starting stuff like bishop to f3. There's also the possibility in some lines of playing like the knight forward somewhere, is possibly the e4 push, and then playing the knight to e4. So there's a lot of different options. Maybe try to take advantage of this backwards d-pawn. So I like this. I like this move for more than one reason, covering a couple of important squares for the queen. It also gets the queen off of the x-ray attack, so d5 has less sting. Veritwich says, Bertrow, think about the previous world championship for Magnus, and you were right about the Sicilian in the past it was played. Yes, I mean I still think like the Sicilian is very popular. I would say it's the most popular opening probably for black, but maybe not these exact lines. a6, rook over, so white is just dominating down this d file now. d5 is going to have to come someday anyways. Queen to c7, b3. Probably he's concerned about the queen move, and he wants to be able to play knight over to a4. h6, g3. White is just in complete cruise control here. The bishop is going to go to f3. The rook over to e8 is a bit of a surprise. He wants to keep on x-raying that rook. Or that queen. I would have expected him to come here. But now his idea is if the d-pawn pushes, pawn takes and pawn takes, then he'll have a rook on the queen. Queen's just going to mosey on back to f2 for the time being. Knight to e7. h3. Remember, a draw is not good enough here. This is a game that Fabi has to win. This is the third game of a 4-game rapid tiebreak. If Fabi does not stone cold win this, he's down 2-0. If he had won it, it would have made for a very exciting final game in the rapid, but because he would have had the white pieces. But instead, he's in this situation. He's forced to take risks. Now the rook does come to d8. The bishop back to g2. White is happy to just wait. He can slowly improve his position, play king to f2 if he wants to, or h2. He might not want to because of the queen there, but he's got lots of little waiting moves that he can make. He doesn't mind a shuffle. So knight to c6. G4, now he gets a little brazen. Queen does finally come to a5. And now the knight to a4. Now you see the purpose of this b3 move. Queen back to c7. White could shuffle here. But this is a beautiful move, guys. There was some debate here for the commentators. And they were looking at a lot of different moves. Knight to c3 here is a simple and logical move, just going back to where you were. And there was also some talk about playing g4. g4 is interesting because if pawn takes and pawn takes, let's say whatever, the knight comes back. Maybe now he can play... Can he play this pawn push? There was some kind of a concept here. I can't remember what it was. I can't remember what the purpose of this move was, but if nothing else, it's chasing the piece back. Is this Percy? Is Percy in the house, guys? Orlova Chess is here. What's up, man? Holy shit, we got Orlova in the house. Let me see if I got any extra VIPs for Orlova Chess. I feel like I feel like Orlova chess, commands a VIP. I feel like Orlova chess... Guys, if you guys don't know this, here's a little thing you should know about Orlova chess. She has just put out a children's chess book, and it is doing very, very well. It's available on Amazon. You might be able to get it someplace else. I don't know. She can give you some more information. But if you want a really high-quality chess book, that by buying it, you're also supporting a fellow streamer, please go and buy that book, or at least go take a look at that book and tell your friends about it. You can find all of that information on her site. So give Orlova Chess a follow and go pick up that book, guys. Let's help a fellow streamer out. I'm really proud of you, Lisa. Good for you. I'm really, really proud of you. You've inspired me to get put in some more serious work on my book that I'm writing as well. Seeing you being so successful and seeing how happy it's made you to do that. So good for you. Good for you, Lisa. Well, I'm Pickle Rick. I'm Pickle Rick, bitch. I'm Pickle Rick, bitch. Lisa thinks that I sound like Rick from Rick and Morty. So there's my best greeting in a Rick voice. Vince Silden says he seems to have control over more space. You're welcome, Lord Love. I'm really proud of you. You keep up the good work, man, and get started on book 2 because there's going to be a demand now. So, I mean, like, this position is just awful for Black. I feel so bad for Fabi. I'm sure he could easily draw this, but he knows he's got to win. He's just trying to find a way to build up enough pressure to get this d5 in, but it's just not coming. It's a backwards pawn. The Maroczy bind format is doing its normal job and just cramping down forever on that d5 square. Very textbook, but this move is particularly deadly. And I don't think any of the commentators that I was watching even saw this move as a possibility, but it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, voluntarily breaking his own Maroczy bind. Pawn takes, knight takes, c5, beautiful chess. Rook takes and rook takes, he's just going straight into a draw line. Rook takes and queen takes, he wants to wrap this thing up. The bishop has to go back. I mean, the only other choice is he could have tried bishop to c8 instead. Does the computer like that one better? E takes f8, that doesn't work. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. Fabi's just desperately trying to hold on to one last piece. At least in this line, he can take with the queen now, because the knight's guarded by the bishop. So queen takes, a beautiful move, knight to d7. Nice little trick, a nice little attempt. So for example here, let's say if knight takes, pawn takes, and queen to d6, I've got queen takes knight. Queen here is also interesting, but I think just queen takes is fine. And then Black is suddenly winning this position. So that was kind of the trick there. So good effort. Instead, look at this absolutely beautiful move. This is one of the most beautiful moves of the entire match for me. This move is exquisite. Look at this move, guys. Queen to d6, giving up the knight for free on c2. Forcing draw lines. Queen to f8 is coming. Knight takes knight. Whoops. So let's say if queen takes, we've got queen check, king here, knight takes, pawn takes, and check. Game, set, match, Magnus Carlsen. And that's the kind of a thing you can do in a format like this because all he needs now is the draw. Oh, thanks, Lisa. That's really kind of you. I feel the same way about you. I especially enjoy your commentary on puzzles, your puzzle solving. I watched Lisa live get like a 29 or a 30 or something like that on Puzzle Rush, which is a higher number than I ever got. Lisa's some sort of a puzzle wizard. She's a wizard, I tells you. A witch of puzzles. She's some sort of a sorcerer of puzzles. And she can do that on, like, on a number of beers, a number of beers in her belly. No, I asked people over Twitch to put the Orlova's information out. I asked people to do that. Lisa Orlova is a fellow Canadian as well, and she's a personal friend of mine and from Twitch here, and I want to support her. It's kind of like with the emotes and stuff, guys. I always tell you, unless you're like coming into my show and only spamming your emotes and not mine, like as some sort of like some sort of a thing to promote yourself above other people, then that would piss me off. But if you're just some ordinary person and you're a streamer and you're a friend of my show and you spam a bunch of people's emotes, my emotes, your emotes, other people's emotes, by all means, go ahead and do that. I'm not one of those emote snobs where I don't want you to put other people's emotes. You can only use like my channel's emotes. I'm not chess.com or whatever. I'm like, I want you to do that. I want you to support my community, and I want you guys to support Lisa Orlova. I want you to buy her book. I want you to go watch Chess Pats or Whales. I want you to go watch Rufus and Doofus and spam their emotes. You paid for them. Why shouldn't you use them? So that's my kind of take on that. That's why I promote those people, not because I have to, but because I like my community and they do the same for me. And I just think I want them to be, to be better known and successful in the streaming industry. So anyways, queen to d6, folks, possibly my favorite move of this entire match. Absolute brilliance. Knight takes, queen check, king up, queen takes bishop. So no more cheapos. No more cheapos. Queen check. If here, queen check, that's just a draw, right? So knight to d4, gonna try to get in here. I would probably still get checkmated if I was playing Fabi. I would probably still somehow lose this game. Queen f5, pawn takes, queen e3, and Fabi knows that there's nothing to hope for here, so he's just desperate. He could just draw this game on the spot, but he's trying to play for the win. Another beautiful move, b4, knight to g5, c-pawn push, again the c-pawn push. Now the game is lost for black, but he was desperate. He had to keep his pieces on the board. He had no choice. So this is a very illegitimate win. This was an easy draw for Fabi, but he was just forced against his will to play on in a drawn position. So knight comes back. He doesn't know what else to do. He's just trying something. Pawn push, queen to c3, queen to c5, game over. The idea here, by the way, was let's say, for example, if queen to here, then I think knight to here was interesting. Yeah, at least it was an attempt. Apparently here you can try queen to e3 and get a draw. It suggests the line pawn here, queen check, king down, and queen takes. But still, a draw is still a loss for him because he's down 2 games. So there was nothing here. He's just desperate. And that's the end of the match, folks. Forced mate in 11. So, folks, it was a very... even though there was a lot of draws, I know people were disappointed with that. I was disappointed with that. And there were some very tepid draws. But overall, I feel like the rapid games demonstrate how close these two players really are. Because of the fact that that small little difference of a little bit of extra time on the clock was the difference between Fabi making grotesque blunders and getting throttled 3-0. Although, again, this last game was a bit of a throw off because that was an easy draw at the end. Fabi was just playing on out of desperation. So even if you call it 2.5 to half, still he got throttled. That's how small the differences are, okay, between these two players. So if you actually take a critical look at the games throughout the match, yes, there were those minor mistakes. Yes, there was the 30-move win that the computer rattled off in Game 6. Yes, there was h3 instead of queen to h5. Yes, there was the first game where Magnus had a forced win. He just had to play queen to b1 and take the guy's c-pawn, and the game was over. Okay, but those were very extremely complicated positions, and a close scrutinizing of these games of this match is going to demonstrate to you that Fabi played excellent chess. The level of the chess was very high quality, and we've got a lot of interesting things, a lot of meat on that bone, a lot of new openings to look at, and Fabi was full game, and he had his chances. Fabi Caruana is going to come back again. He will be in the World Championship again. That is my prediction. I thought he played outstanding. I thought he was better prepared, and overall, I thought he outplayed Magnus. And that's sad that it has to end on a rapid game. But overall, I feel like it was a pretty exciting World Championship match, some real classic games. And I hope you guys enjoyed this walk through time as we've looked at our World Championship. I'm going to remove this background shortly, so we're going to take one more look at it. Here's the background with all the linear World Chess Champions. And then I'm going to get right into the chat, so I apologize for any comments I missed. I am going to go catch up on them all. So these are all the linear World Championships, World Champions. I've also got Philidor there and Morphy on this picture. So let's take one more look at them as we walk through time from 1866 until present day 2018. The linear World Chess Champions: Wilhelm Steinitz, Emanuel Lasker, Jose Raul Capablanca, Alexander Alekhine, Max Uwe, Mikhail Botvinnik, Vasily Smyslov, Mikhail Tal, Tigran Petrosian, Boris Spassky, Robert James Fischer, Anatoly Karpov, Garry Kasparov, Vladimir Kramnik, Viswanathan Anand, and the 2018 repeat world champion retaining his title, Mr. Magnus Carlsen of Norway. Thank you so much to everybody who hung around and watched my commentaries. My numbers plummeted as far as the viewer numbers, but it's been a lot of fun, and the people who enjoyed it really seem to enjoy it. I'm going to make sure these are all uploaded in my VOD so that you guys can check them out in the future if there's ever anything that you want to look back at. But you guys were extremely generous with your time and with your money, with your subs and your bits and the support. So thank you guys all for hanging around while I did this through the World Championship match. Okay, let's get caught up on the convos here.